Shadows asleep amidst the trees. Bats all are swaying in the breeze. But when the soul lies anxious, wide awake, fearing all manner of ghouls, hags and wraiths. For your dolly Polly sleep has flown, don't dare let her tremble alone. For the witcher, heartless cold, paid in coin of gold. He comes, he'll go, leave naught behind but heartache and woe. Deep, deep woe. It's all silent for the night. House turned in as daylight dies. But when soullight anxious wide awake, fearing all manner of ghouls, hags and wraiths, my dear darling.
Hi everyone and welcome to our virtual ParaMeet. We're bringing this to you from the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre in Hinckley, Leicester, and of course we're sponsored by Sims Vintage Antiques in Walton Warren near Stratford. So a big welcome to everybody. I hope you've all had a fantastic Christmas. We've got our lovely guest with us tonight, Kate Sherrill. Hi.
Hello.
Kate.
Happy Christmas.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Just about recovering from yesterday, so I'm with it.
Yeah. It's lovely to have you back on the show.
Thank you. No, it's lovely to be back. Lovely to see your beautiful faces.
Oh, bless you. You must be going blind. Well, you're actually our first guest on this ParaMeet.
I know. I feel like there's a lot of expectation on my shoulders now with everything
pressure,
that comes.
No pressure, Kate.
Oh yeah, no, none at all.
Okay, can I just say, I said it on the evidence show. Well done to the Lockdown Loonies because they reached 40.9 thousand views on Christmas Eve during their show, which is, and I don't know why, because it ain't that good. No, it is. So please like every show that we do and share it. It's free. We're not asking people for stars or anything like that. So it's free. So share it because that's going to help with our Facebook, whatever they're called. I can't remember the word now.
Algorithms.
That's the one. This is why I got Jane. You see, Jane's the one with the big words. So Kate, if anyone missed you on the Haunted Connection show, tell people who you are and what you do. Right.
Well, I'm Kate Sherrill, and I always introduce myself by saying I'm a professional cliche. So my life mainly revolves around death and cemeteries and ghosts in one way or another. And I run the website burialsandbeyond.com, which is a sort of light-hearted look at everything from folklore, cemeteries, a lot of historical hauntings and legends, anything that falls under a spooky banner. So, I mean, recently I've had posts about cemeteries where I'll pick some really interesting graves and then I'll go and I'll research who's in there and write about their lives. And then I've also had silly things like the legend of the Lambton Worm and, you know, the great Poundland uproar of 2020 about the Ouija. So I try and keep it really varied and relevant to anyone who's got an interest in things that are a little bit left field, whether that be ghosts or even local history, things like that. but there's always a bit of a spooky bent to it. So that's me.
Well, what do you mean, the Poundland outrage?
Well, in, what was it, September this year? It was definitely before Halloween. Poundland brought out their Halloween range under the banner of Creepy Town. So that brought out loads of different things like melting skull candles and weird masks and things like that. But Poundland also brought out a £1 spirit board.
It just so happens.
Oh, this is like Blue Pizza, isn't it? And here's one he made earlier.
There might be more than one in my office.
Yeah.
we might have 7.
Yeah, well, I heard they sold out, so we know who they went to. But yeah, that beautiful board. There was a lot of kickoff online in the paranormal community, and a lot of that, because of the time of year, obviously fed into a lot of tabloids and a lot of clickbaity articles. And I found myself, I don't want to say obsessed, but I'll say with a strong interest in both sides of the argument. And I thought, tell you what I'm going to do, I'm going to look at the original articles about when this came to press. I'm going to get myself one of those quality £1 spirit boards, and I'm going to write this big funny article about why people don't want it sold, why Poundland sold it, and what kind of went wrong. And also, I know a lot of very, very funny goths. So I've got loads in there about what people actually did with their £1 spirit boards. So there's a lot of different placemat ideas, a lot of home decor, and people that just thought it was hilarious to be able to go down to Poundland and go, I'm going to summon the dead for £1, which is brilliant. I can't see why anyone would ever despair of that. But
it did cause massive controversy, didn't it, though?
It hilariously so. It was utterly ridiculous. And I love it. I think if we're going to get a huge controversy in the paranormal world in any year, it's going to be in 2020. And why not lump in a bargain retailer? It was just wonderful.
I actually reckon it was fantastic advertising for Poundland.
Absolutely.
Because
yeah, and they sold out.
Yeah, no advertising is bad. So it worked well for them. To me, it worked well for them.
Yeah, and it was fun to watch everything unfold day to day. Yeah.
I must admit, we've not used any of ours yet. I'm keeping them till they're worth about £50.
Yeah, keep them box fresh and then whack them on eBay. Yeah, you'll be sorted.
Yeah. What are you saying, Jane?
I was going to say, we know the Victorians used to use the spirit boards quite well in their parlour games and stuff. What do you think that they would make of it? I mean, being able to nip down the shop and buy one for £1.
Well, I think equally it would have sold out if it was made in 1890, as long, as much as it was today. But I know, could go either way. I mean, sort of table tipping and things like that came in to England in the latter part of the 19th century as a bit of after dinner fun. So it was an entertainment thing and not necessarily this deep religious or belief related act. So, maybe the higher end Victorians wouldn't have wanted to shell out £1, maybe more, 50 quid, nice lacquered one. Yeah. But I'm sure your common or garden 19th century spiritualist would have jumped at the opportunity for such a cardboard foldable delight in their arsenal.
But I think it just shows the influence Hollywood has on things, doesn't it? Because it's only because of Hollywood, the Ouija board or talking board or whatever you want to call it, same thing really. It's only because of Hollywood people have got this fear, in my opinion. Yeah,
it's always shown to be not a tool, but an actual, like a sentient thing itself. Like the evil is inherently within the Ouija board. Yeah, which is strange. It's good for horror and it's good for, horror stories, horror films. It's great, but in reality, it's very tired. It's a very tired track now. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've got to put a couple of comments up. I think these are for you, Jane. Barry is asking questions. What does the other side of life do in their life?
Do you mean what do they do once they move on into the spirit world?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's how I seem to read that. They will go on and do all sorts of things. They will learn more lessons. They will maybe come back through reincarnation. They maybe go on to be spirit guides, healers, helping in other ways in the spirit world. So there's lots and lots of things that spirit can do once they get to the other side.
Yeah, well, we've got children spirits in the center, and we talk to them through whatever means we're using at the time, and the children tend in every evening sit around their rocking chair and listen to Grandma Mary tell them stories, which is lovely. And I know a couple of them still come down my house, and one causes mischief and the other one says we shouldn't be doing that. So they do what they want, really, or what's planned out for them, don't they?
I mean, what are your thoughts, Kate? What they would get up to in the afterlife?
Well, I hope a lot of them just go for a long nap, because this whole existence arc is really tiring. I don't know. I mean, I buy into the whole idea of, one happy reunion and then death is just one long cocktail party. So that's what I'd like to have.
So that's going to be your heaven then, Kate. A long cocktail party.
Yeah, for eternity. Free bar. that's my idea. Yeah.
Okay, another one for you, Jane. Barry says, can you please tell me if my mother is okay?
Yeah, I'm sure she'll be okay, Barry. I'm sure she'll be around you, especially this time of year. She'll be looking in on you and looking after you. So I'm sure she's around you now.
Okay. Karen says, hi, Karen. The only thing that scares me using the board is having my mother come through. Been trying to bump her off for years. Oh, God. I love you, Karen. So have you ever used a Ouija board, Kate?
Personally, I haven't. And that's I think is a bit of an unusual thing about me. I don't participate in any kind of seance or spirit contact unless it's to do with like recreations and lectures and things. So I don't do that, but I'm more interested in like the history of spirit boards, where you can trace it back to, where we get these ideas of their power and their use, and then how it relates to people. I'm very much a people person.
Yeah. So
yeah, I kind of leave moving planchettes to the professionals, and I just write down what you do, and then make a joke about it. And then hopefully other people read it or listen to me. That's kind of my shtick.
Okay. Are you working on anything at the minute?
Yeah, I'm going to be launching a Patreon in the new year, which is quite a big, scary undertaking, because that means lots more audio, lots more video, things like that. So if anyone's interested in seeing what madness I create, please do have a look at my Facebook page, which is I'm Burials and Beyond on it, or on my website. But I'm also finishing my PhD. I'm in the last blissful few months of it. So once that's finished, I've got some books that I need to publish, because I can't do that until they're pushed through the system.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'll be doing my lectures and my talks again in the new year, because I miss it so much. Because I normally, when situation allows, go around the country giving talks on Victorian mourning practices, cemeteries, mourning jewellery, things like that. And I really like engaging with people and chatting and seeing people's interests in things. So I miss doing that, and hopefully I'll be doing a lot more of that in the new year. And Patreon and online stuff might help, more people find new interests and passions.
That's cool. Yeah, that's all down to the COVID situation, though, obviously.
Yeah.
I'll
be in my house until there's the siren for the all clear.
Bit of a pain at the minute, this COVID business. We'll have to book you in at the centre for a talk one day.
Yeah, I'd love that. I'd bring my travelling museum and see if there's room for it in there as well.
Yeah, fitting well. It says, are you allowed to give messages out from my mother in spirit to me? That's what you get again, Jane.
Possibly, Barry, but not necessarily right now, not in this session. We're not really doing any readings or messages in this, in this session. So maybe later on, we'll see what sort of sessions and what guests and things that we've got going on, but it won't be probably this evening.
No, we've got lots more coming up throughout the week, Barry. So Kate, so you're a weird one that likes going around cemeteries alone, and
I do, which sounds incredibly threatening, really, doesn't it? Sort of, lurking around graves all the time. But yeah, I've got a really big passion for cemeteries, and I think they're really undervalued places, just as places of enjoyment, places of history. And so that's a big part of what I do. Is I either go round cemeteries, as I said earlier, I find graves that look really interesting or unusual, or have got facts on them, because you'll see a lot of, especially round Cleethorpes, where I'm from, you see a lot of graves with how they died, the ship they died on, and then it gives you this amazing snowball of research to go around. So I love that aspect, and I like publishing online all of the things I find, and I really like getting pictures of graves or of burial cards as well, and that leads me back to finding out who this person was, finding their grave, and kind of humanizing the dead in a way, because I think we don't really interact with cemeteries a lot, unless you're fortunate enough to live by some big city cemetery that's got, a cafe and a visitor centre and all of that. So I really do sing their praises, and I think there's a lot of history, but a lot of fun to be found in cemeteries as well. You'll think you're looking up a normal grave, and then you'll find, this mad person who chucked themselves out of a waterfall in a barrel, and you won't, there's always fascinating stories and brilliantly weird people that are just waiting to have their stories told. And I think that's just such a fantastic thing to be able to share.
Yeah. So what you got you interested in this then?
In cemeteries or in
the whole, because it is quite a unique area you're in, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose I think because the way I approach my any of my work that I put online is I don't want any of my online input and anything I do under Burials and Beyond to be hyper academic. I want everything to be about chatting to people and making connections and things like that. So I grew up, as I said, in Cleethorpes, and my granddad used to take me to our local cemetery twice a week, which every time I say it does sound incredibly morbid, but it was, I had that connection of, we go to the cemetery to see family and, tidy up graves and things. And then the more we went, the more you started looking at different graves and grave symbols and things people left on graves. And then you start thinking, okay, well, that's got an urn on it. What does an urn mean? That's got a broken column. What does that mean? And then over the years, it's just snowballed into, well, I'm interested in the paranormal and things like that. And I'm interested in cemeteries. And the deeper you get into these things, the more little connections you'll find and the more threads. And I'm fortunate enough to now make that an enormous part of my life. But yeah, it all spans from people and stories and hidden knowledge, hidden symbols. I think that's really enticing. Like when you look at a piece of Victorian jewellery and you see, certain symbols and you think, what does that mean? Same applies to graves and things. So it's been a lifelong obsession, really, that I enjoy sharing.
Oh, brilliant. Am I right? You're right for Haunted Magazine as well now? Yeah,
they very kindly up with me. I do a lot of stuff about Victorian spiritualism and 19th century attempts at trying to prove certain elements of mediumship and spiritualism and ghost contact. Looking at that and looking at those aspects and trying to show you how they did it. And again, how funny it is. Because I think we look at Victorian spiritualists and Victorian mediums and think that these, mad old women gazing up at the sky and channeling the dead, which is one aspect you can look at, but I find so much fun and interest to be found in frauds, especially in like when people were claiming big things like ectoplasm, when a woman sat at a table coughing up 3 yards of cheesecloth. That I want to read about. That's the sort of thing that you can chat about with people, and you're not. I mean, I loathe confrontation, and the last thing I'd ever want to do is say anything negative about anyone's beliefs. And I think that's one of the few common grounds you can find, is that, this man in 1875 walked out of a cabinet in a bad wig and said he was an Egyptian queen and he'd like 50 quid from you for messages from the afterlife. That's they're the sort of wonderful untold stories that I'm very fortunately able to get across in Haunted magazine, and with a lot of recreation photos that were interesting to recreate. Nearly choking on a few yards of silk on a Saturday afternoon. So always a bonus, isn't it?
You have so much fun.
Well, you've got to, haven't you? You've got to.
Yeah. I think it's a good magazine, though, isn't it? Jane regularly writes for the Haunted magazine. So yes, it's a good magazine. It is probably the best. Well, it's been voted the best, hasn't it? So what's good about the Haunted magazine is the diversity as well.
Yeah, there's something for everyone.
It's not just focused on one thing. And they'll print any weird and wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's me. So obviously it's going to be weirder.
do you ever get some weird comments when people find out what you do?
I think with the way that I if it's in person, the way that I dress, people see me, talk to me, and then go, "Oh, of course." I think like the whole goth thing's a bit of a visual signal to some people, but I'm quite fortunate that most comments are really positive, and I've had some really great discussions. The only negative aspects I've had are from because my attitude isn't exclusively academic. That's a different part of me. That if someone, their life's passion is this very niche 19th century medium, and they're the only person that's really studied them or worked on them before, and then I barrel in, recreating an image of this woman, with half a curtain round my head and a Cabbage Patch Kid in my arms, I think that's fine, because I'm not disrespecting the person, but I'm adding a bit of humor to it. And they're the instances when I've had quite horrible emails from very, very angry women threatening me. But, it's like, I'm in a room in Cleethorpes. What are you going to do?
Would that upset you?
Less so now.
Would you take it to heart?
I try not to. I think I'm quite thick-skinned nowadays. I think because if your intent is never malicious, and I mean, I just want to entertain people, and I want to chat and offer people just a break. This is just, if you want to have a 15-minute read of something a bit spooky, I want to be that person that can provide that for you.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the person that's suddenly, at your window interrogating you, going, yeah, but what did that woman do in 1892? I don't think she was right. It's like, I've no interest in that. So I think if anyone comes at me with aggression, I just click delete and crack on with the rest of my day, as I think everyone should.
Yeah. You got a question, Jane?
Yes, I'm very interested in Kate's thoughts on, I know your passion for cemeteries, but what are your thoughts on things like HS2, when they're going through these cemeteries like in London, and they're just exhuming all the bodies, in order for this train line to go through, which I feel is a bit of a sacrilege really to the dead. Once you're placed in the ground, you expect them to be there, for all eternity, don't you? You don't expect some diggers to come and just dig you all up just for the sake of a railway. And they do say that they're going to be burying them, sort of outside of the city somewhere. And I just think that's just such a shame. But I'm interested in your thoughts with your sort of passion for the cemeteries and this sort of work that's going on now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm by no means the biggest fan of HS2 at all. I think not just for the aspect of burial grounds and things like that, but also just because they've wrecked a lot of important heritage sites just for side roads and things like that. So I think it's a really inflammatory subject, the whole HS2 thing, and yeah, I think it's ridiculous. But as for burial grounds, I mean, the idea of a resting place being for eternity is quite a relatively modern invention. That's a real Victorian thing. So if you look at it from a very cold academic perspective, with progress, people will need to be disinterred. And if you just look at it from a practical aspect, at least the remains are being very, they're being treated very well. They're being catalogued, and that's being done by the best people. It's not just our Darren down the street with a shovel saying let's get him up. But so I think there's from that example, if it's a necessary thing, at least it's being done properly, and they're not just destroying a site and then going, oh look, there was a cemetery after all, what a shame. But from an emotional perspective, I don't think anyone likes to see any burial ground, no matter how well hidden, desecrated in a way. I don't think it's a nice thing to consider. But I see that it's a bit of a catch-22 situation. Yeah.
I think there's something like 2,000 bodies.
Yeah, in London, most of London is built on burial grounds and plague pits. I think if you dig up the foundations of any building in central London, you will find a lot of bodies. And there are a lot of other hidden cemeteries and graveyards and old churchyards that are now just wasteland in central London and only have volunteers trying to bring back the history and bring back the importance of the sites. So it's a funny thing that the site that's being destroyed is getting a lot of publicity, but the ones that could really do with some publicity to preserve them while there's still a chance, there isn't that same kind of pressure behind them. So there's things like the Crossbones Graveyard project in London. That's a hidden cemetery in the middle of London that mainly that was full of is still full of poor Victorians, sex workers, things like that, and it's no longer an acknowledged important heritage site, but a lot of local people and a lot of very passionate death positive people are creating this whole movement behind it to get it acknowledged and to get some preservation back on the site. So it's tricky. I'd like to see a lot more people kick up a really positive movement behind the sites that we can save, to make up for the ones that we're losing.
Yeah, okay. A few more questions. Barry says, question for you guys. Do you think this COVID-19 will be over with soon? What's your opinions? Start with you, Jane.
I think it's a tricky one, really, because they said it would probably be all over by Christmas, didn't they? And yet we're still in sort of lockdowns. We've now got an extra tier 4, which most of the countries are either in tier 3 or 4, aren't they? So you just don't know. You just can't say. We'd like to think it'd be over by next Christmas, but who knows? Now they've got the vaccinations, and they're talking about herd immunity, but it's still going to take, another 6 months or so. Then you just can't tell, really.
What about you, Kate? What do you think?
I know what I want, which I think is what everyone wants, for it to be over very soon, please, because I'd like to see some people. Makes it sound a bit gangster-like. I'd like to see some people. I don't mean like friends and nice people. But yeah, I can't see. It's nice seeing the vaccines and things roll out, but I'm still going to be living in pajamas for a good few months yet. And if that's the price we have to pay to to make things safer for people, then oh my God, there are so many harder things you could do to save people's lives, and I'm as lazy as they come physically. So if I can save lives by watching a box set and wearing a onesie, I'll do that for as long as you want. You know?
Jane's actually worn out 2 pairs of slippers during this year, haven't you, Jane?
Yeah, I've just had a 3rd pair for Christmas, so I'm all right now.
I admire that commitment. I really do admire that.
Jane's up and down pacing, thinking, oh God, Neil's asked me to do research this now. My personal opinion, I don't think it will see the back of it ever, totally. I think it's always going to be here, and I don't think we'll be back to anything like normal, at least the summer next year. But,
I do find it interesting though that the flu has sort of disappeared. Nobody seems to have the flu this winter. You know, you'd think that the 2 of them would run side by side, wouldn't you? You think the flu would still be out there along with COVID.
yeah,
There probably is, but we don't hear about it as much because it's
that's right.
not as
Not as interesting.
Not as newsworthy, is it?
Mm.
Okay, then let's a few more comments. Karen says, Kate, I will set Mother on loose on those horrible women. She scares the hell out of me.
Thank you. I'll rent her when time allows. Thanks, Karen. I could do with her.
Okay, Barry says, I have been through some of the cemeteries in London. I find them very scary. You see heaps of graves there. I feel like they are watching you and following you about when he's in the cemetery.
Yeah,
So
some of the.
Do you feel like you're sometimes being watched when you're walking through these cemeteries, Kate?
Very rarely. I recently wrote about a trip to Brompton Cemetery, which is it's just by Kensington, Chelsea and Kensington in London, and that visually was like that. It's one of the Magnificent Seven cemeteries, so it's so densely packed, full of bodies, and these headstones at all different heights and angles and mausoleums. And you know, that is my dream place. I can spend all day there with my camera, just being absolutely ecstatic. And I never felt anything paranormal or spiritual following me. But you know, there were quite a few drug dealers that were keeping an eye on me as well. So the only time I've ever felt like anyone's watching me while going around cemeteries, it's usually because someone is, because they're wondering if I'm going to try and score from them or something like that. And I'm a pure little wonderful woman, so I scuttle away with my little camera in fear and leave them to their business.
Yeah, it's the living that most scary to me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
This is our Bloss. Bloss says, I hate the fact that ancient woodland is being destroyed. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's universal with HS2, isn't it?
Yeah. Barry says some of the headstones date back to the 1800 to 1300 years when the people were about before our time, which is very interesting to know. I find it good to know about it, the dates on the headstones. So yeah, so it sounds like Barry likes looking at the headstones as well. Okay, here's a question for you, Kate. Bon says, Kate, what is your view on souls after death?
Well, I don't conform to any particular belief system, you know, and I don't have any mediumistic powers or any sort of experience like that. But my personal beliefs, I believe the soul exists after death. I believe it leaves the body upon the point of death. And then beyond that, I wish I had more concrete beliefs, and I really envy people that do. But all I know is what I've seen when I've seen family members die. Again, not a murdery thing, quite a normal, they were ill and they were ready to go. So when I've seen them go, I believe that I saw something change and something leave them. Not in a visual sort of there's a floaty thing, but in a sense of their body gave up something and then died. So that's what I base my beliefs from, is from my personal lived experiences. But yeah, I can't say I have anything more concrete than that. that
Yeah.
I believe in, which is a shame, but one day.
Yeah. Stephanie says, I agree with Neil. We will have to learn to live with it. That's going back to COVID. Oh, wrong one. Sorry. Biff, who's watching on YouTube, says Brompton Cemetery. Is that the dead centre of London?
Hey. Pun point.
Why does that not surprise me, that comment, Biff? Okay, you got another question, Jane?
Yes, in the Victorian cemeteries, do you feel, because the Victorians' thoughts and beliefs were different about sort of life after death, do you think there's more Victorian cemeteries that are classed as haunted? You know, and a lot of people tend to sort of do paranormal investigations, don't they, in cemeteries? And I know my thoughts on cemeteries. Do you think that some of the cemeteries are more haunted than others?
I don't know. I do think that a lot of people regard older cemeteries as being more haunted or more spooky because of just the visual aspect. So in cemeteries that are like pre-1920, perhaps you'll get a lot more, you'll get huge obelisks and different shaped headstones because there were no health and safety requirements as to the height of headstones in case there are topple risk, which is very dull, but it's, you know, it's one of those practical things. So I think visually when we see very busy cemeteries with lots of big towering yew trees and all this symbolism, we visually associate that with that's closer to death because it's more visually, visually imposing. And so because it's so so different from what we're used to in contemporary burial sites and experiences of burial and so on, we think it's like an other. So we associate that more with death and with ghosts and hauntings because it's what we've seen in films, read in books that are Victorian centric, whereas contemporary burial sites and modern cemeteries, I think we link them a lot more to people within our generational kind of reach. So we don't see it as this other place filled with ghosts. We actually see that as, no, this is a place of people that we could have known. So we don't quite have that same link with hauntings. That's the way I look at things anyway.
Yeah, cool. A couple more comments. This is from Justin. I think people only tend to think back to the Victorian period and not much further back.
Yeah, I think a lot of that when we're talking about death and cemeteries is because most of the remaining cemeteries, I say cemeteries rather than graveyards or churchyards, cemeteries that we have in cities and in larger towns are exclusively of Victorian construction. So this is after the Cemetery Acts in the 1830s, when towns and cities would put aside large spaces of grass or of old gardens and things like that to make burial sites. So what we're used to, and most of what we've got to study, is later 19th century, whereas a lot of the earlier headstones are still in smaller churchyards and places that are still protected. So I think we really only look at Victorians because that makes up the majority of what we've got as a reference point.
Okay,
but there's amazing earlier ones.
That's interesting. Then Justin says, I'm learning Old English and I say very slowly, but if you look back over history, think of all, there's more, the different languages we had all over the UK. Karen says, unfortunately, I see investigators in modern cemeteries putting cat balls and K2s on modern graves. Sorry, but I find that so funny. And I shouldn't do. This makes me very uncomfortable. What is the panel's views on this growing trend? Okay, start with Kate then, because you're our guest. What's your views on
this is
I like how you set yourself.
Yeah, I don't want to offend anyone. It's the last thing I want to do.
No, just say your opinion.
I don't believe from a moral, religious or legal perspective that anyone should be conducting paranormal investigations in burial sites that aren't exclusively their own. If you own your own private cemetery where only your family is buried, knock yourself out, go wild. But I think when people, especially in lockdown, we've seen people doing lives from cemeteries and places like that. But from a very practical perspective, I think the way that we think of burial sites is that they're this communally owned place. And we think everyone has a right to do in there what they want, when actually most cemeteries now, most of the larger ones, sure, the land may be owned by maybe a council or something like that, but the cemetery itself is owned privately or by a charity or similar trust. And so legally, they have control over that site and they're a business. So if you think of it from a business perspective, when you've got lots of people in there from different walks of life, different religions, different moral slants, are they all going to communally agree that you entering a site is okay? And I think there's an element of consent that we can't ever really consider there. We can't ever get right. And with these privately owned cemeteries, if these lives circulate and people see fresh graves, I've seen lives of people putting different, EMF things on freshly dug graves. And I think no matter what you think about investigating in cemeteries, you can't surely think that is appropriate. And I think we often leave our head behind and our morality behind when we enter these spaces, because we're so blinkered as to, I can get some really good evidence here. Whereas really we should think, am I trespassing, firstly? Because that's a really rubbish thing to get a conviction for. It's not cool. But also, would the people who own this cemetery be comfortable with me being here? Would the people whose graves and whose burial sites I'm using would be here? And what I'm doing, does it compromise anyone's belief system? So I think it's a really loaded question. But I think anyone who enters a burial site respectfully is more than welcome to do what they want there, but bear those things in mind,
Okay. Over to you, Jane.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that because they're sort of part of a churchyard or whatever, they are sort of public land where people can just go on and just do whatever they want. For me, cemeteries aren't always that particularly interesting, because it's somewhere where you tend to just leave your body, that physical, form that you no longer need, and your spirit will be off. I don't feel that a lot of spirit do hang around the graveyard. Why would you? When you've got family or loved ones or a favourite house to haunt or whatever, why would you hang around a cemetery all the time? And the other thing is, even if it's perhaps a relatively new grave or however old the grave is, you cannot summon anybody to come and talk to you. You cannot summon the dead or the spirits or whatever. They will only come to you and talk to you if they want to. And if they want to, then they've got that free will there. That I think sometimes people think that people can go into these cemeteries and force these spirits to rise up from the grave and come and talk to them, and that's just not the case. You can't force that. Spirit will only come and talk to you if they want to, and I don't feel that there's an awful lot of them there in the cemetery anyway.
No, I agree. Okay. It is a growing trend, especially during COVID times, because teams still want to go. And what would annoy me even more, apart from putting cat balls on a grave, is when they're asking people to share and send them stars. So they're actually making money out of it. I'm not saying anyone's done it, but it wouldn't surprise me, because I don't watch many teams investigating anyway. Okay, there's more comments. Justin says, I went to a cemetery not long ago and a man came up to me and asked what we were doing. He said his wife was buried there. We explained what we were doing and he was happy to let us carry on. Von says, Justin, I think a Ouija board should be made in Old English to see if we could make more communication.
I wouldn't. You know, I studied Old English at university, and you could not pay me to do that again. You need someone who was fluent to use it as well. And God, well done to them, but you wouldn't catch me near one.
No. Ross says that's wrong about investigating cemeteries.
Yeah.
Justin says, I like going to historical places where you can get relevant information you can clarify. Von says, only in my opinion, I agree, Kate, there is a lot of disrespect shown in cemeteries, graveyards. My preference is not to be buried, but agree some people need something visual for support. And Justin says, would have to put instructions in English with it. Kate said her opinion on a Ouija board. Karen says, good points. Maybe we need to rethink how we approach contacting the supposed dead. Perhaps we forget there are people's loved ones there. It certainly is something to consider. Good point, Jane. And Karen says, I didn't know that. I didn't know that, Neil. I don't know what you're referring to, Karen, now. Sorry. Justin says, some people want to speak to their loved ones. My mother, 2 members lost their dads, which is why they got interested in it. Yeah, but if you want to contact your dead relatives, there's no need to go to cemeteries, no need to go to the graveyards, in my opinion.
No, just do it from your own front room because they'll be around you anyway.
So, so you got another question, Jane?
Yes, I'd.
You made me jump there.
I'm just all about the cemeteries tonight. I'm just really interested in Kate's thoughts on like the French catacombs, because again, with the cemeteries there, they ran out of space, didn't they? And they emptied all the cemeteries and they put them all down into the catacombs, all the bones and things. So do you think that we will get to sort of a situation like that eventually?
Doubtful. I think if we were going to, it would have happened, 300 or 400 years ago, or at least after a plague. But no, I think there's a lot of like ossuaries and catacombs in Prague and Czech Republic, places like that as well. That must be amazing to visit. But no, I think they're beautiful, but I don't think we're.
Do you think that's more of a European thing?
Yeah, I think because we don't have that in any religious tradition of ours in terms of like really elaborately decorating. I think they're mainly Catholic, I might be wrong, churches, which you do get a lot in Eastern Europe. But that's not to say we don't have like little catacombs and like elaborately stacked bodies and things in crypts in the UK. There's some amazing ones that are under the most unassuming churches, little pretty village churches, and then you go down into the vaults and there's just, it's bones after bones after bones. But no, I don't think we'll ever get to that stage. But there's elements like in a lot of Victorian cemeteries, they made like sort of catacombs beneath the cemeteries as not just as space related things. I think we always think, when coffins are just put into walls, that's because there wasn't enough room, but it was a cheaper option. And so in a lot of large Victorian garden cemeteries, you'll go in and expect to see wall-to-wall coffins and plaques, but they're half full, and they never caught on because I think there's that aspect of if you're going to keep a visual thing for someone, you'll want a headstone, and not many people would just want to see the end of a coffin. So there's, it's when we could have had any aspect of stacked bodies, we didn't really buy into it at the time.
Okay, there's a comment from Sarah, who's late. It's not good enough, Sarah. Sorry, a bit late. Who's your guest tonight? As her name's covered by the HAPRC sign. Actually, none of our names are up here tonight. I've obviously clicked on something I shouldn't have done. I guess it's Kate Sherrill, who's interested in anything burial and such like.
Burialsandbeyond.com. Finger guns optional.
Okay, Karen says, I'm a firm believer in historical knowledge, old languages, etc. And Biff has a question for you, Kate. How was cremation viewed in Victorian times, and did that affect on how they viewed the ability to contact the dead?
Yeah, well, we don't really associate cremation with Victorians, but cremation was going on in the 19th century, and it wasn't obviously as widespread as burial, but it wasn't as alien to people as we'd expect. So a lot of Victorian graves are, yeah, they're just graves. But I can't, from what I've researched in spiritualism, there's never been any heavy weight on what happened to the body in relation to the spirit. So it's the same principle of people contacting loved ones who were lost at sea and whose bodies could be in any state or at war, things like that. So throughout spiritualism, right through to the 1920s, because that's when my specialism kind of drops off, there's never been any concern that spirit might not be able to come back in relation to how the body was treated after death. But yeah, people were cremated, but also I don't think it factored into spiritualism and spirit contact that much, because it did seem to be whatever happened to your body, your spirit was released from it, nonetheless. So the ability to contact will still be there.
Cool. Okay. Bloss says, Kate the cemetery lady.
I'll take that. That's good.
Karen says, in my mother's country, the local gravedigger just redug old graves in the church graveyard. It was an acceptable part of the process.
Yeah, because her mum is German.
Right.
And I visited Germany quite a lot. If anyone wants to look at any German cemeteries, tie-in, go to burialsandbeyond.com, and I've done tours of German cemeteries in Berlin and Potsdam. But yeah, a lot of the newer graves, there are still some remaining 19th century graves that are really elaborate, but most grave sites are rented. So you'll have them for 15, 20, 100 years. You'll pay for that. And then when your time's up again, there'll be the family might try and be contacted, and they'll always leave, it's usually a big yellow sticker on the headstone that's up for a few years. It's not like, like a parking ticket. You don't get 2 weeks and then you're up. But they'll leave a sticker on the grave saying, do you want to renew your lease? If not, then they'll disinter and reinter remains somewhere. It will be done respectfully. But a lot of that thing as well is to do with space. And a lot of people, after a few generations, no one visits their graves anymore, which is a sad reality. But it's, again, the idea of you've got a grave in perpetuity isn't a universal belief. A lot of people in different European countries and beyond, will only have a grave for a set amount of time before they're removed, and whatever they do religiously with their bodies is obviously varies from place to place. But yeah.
What do you think the future of cemeteries is? Because we're obviously running out of space.
I think there will be a real movement towards green burial. That seems to be kind of a growing belief. I think cremation's still going to be on the move, because I think now if we want a token of someone, or we want something to remember, something physically to remember someone by, with that we're going far more into memorial jewelry and tokens and things like that. So we'd have that, and not necessarily a grave site. And we don't like the idea of someone being just in one space. That's why we scatter ashes and so on. But the green burial movement is really interesting, and I think we're heading more towards the idea of, if I want to be buried, I want to be buried without, let's say, interference. So without any chemicals, without any big pomp and circumstance, and we want to be buried in woodland or somewhere beautiful, and then we want to be reclaimed by the earth. And I think that's a more romanticized way that we're looking at things now, which deals with any theoretical space problem we might have, because these places are springing up everywhere, and they're popular, and a lot of families seem to like interact with the site in a far healthier way than they would have done a standard gravesite.
Okay, the last few comments. Corinne says, very true, Kate. My German grandparents' grave and headstone are gone now. Mum is too old, and I regret not getting their little headstone sent over to us. That's a shame. One says, some of the burial sites in Jewish cemeteries in Prague, Greece and Spain are beautiful, but all based on space.
Mm.
And I think we touched on Sarah's comment, but we can do it again. Sarah says, a lot of people say they don't believe cemeteries to be haunted, as to say, why would their spirits hang around in the final resting place? What are your thoughts? We'll start with you, Kate.
I don't think they would. I think, like Jane said, if your family are elsewhere, wouldn't you want to be with your family, or at least spy on them? You know, why would you hang around in a cemetery? That's a place for your body and a place for remembrance, and not necessarily a place to kind of linger in torment. I don't think there's any positivity to be gained from approaching a burial site with an idea of contacting spirit.
Yeah. What about you, Jane?
Better job on your
I think it was pretty much what we said earlier, that I don't think spirit would hang around a cemetery very much. We've investigated cemeteries and we've got a few good things come from it, but generally when you think of the amount of bodies in the cemetery to the activity that we've got probably from one or two individuals, the percentage of spirit activity compared to the amount of bodies in the cemetery is minimal, really. And is that just because we're sort of asking for communication? They've just come forward and just to communicate because they want to. We haven't summoned anything, we can't force anything to come, so I think activity in the cemeteries is just minimal anyway.
Yeah. Okay, well, unfortunately we've run out of time. Would you believe it's 9 o'clock?
That's gone quick.
So thanks very much, Kate, for joining us again.
Lovely to see you again.
And hopefully, once COVID's done, we will get you down to the centre to do a talk.
Yes, please.
Yeah. And remind everybody how they can find you if they want to see what you do.
Yeah, you can find me all under the name of Burials and Beyond. So there's my website, burialsandbeyond.com. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm really active on all of those. And head to my website, sign up, and you'll get a weekly sort of bulletin of whatever deathly joys I'm bringing to you that week. And then, if you want to go and look at my coffee account or my upcoming Patreon, sign up to any of those, and you'll get notifications. So it'd be nice to see some new people.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Great. It's always good talking to you, Kate. So to the viewers, don't go anywhere because we're on here for another 3 hours yet. So, but Kate's got to go, so we'll say bye to Kate. So I'm going to keep.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you, Kate. Have a good one. Unless you can.
Okay, so we'll say bye to Kate. That's it. Like magic, Kate's gone. So I'm just going to leave Jane to talk for a minute because I've got to nip to the loo.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to remove myself so Jane can tell you. You can talk about anything, Jane, for a minute.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll just have a quick talk about the ParaMeet then. So go on then, off to the loo.
I'm nipping to the loo.
Yeah, go on. You want any accidents? So over the next 6 nights, we've got the ParaMeet. This is where we are inviting teams, anybody in the paranormal to come along, introduce themselves, let us know who's out there. We just want to make more friends, let people introduce themselves, and hopefully it's going to be a good few nights. So we're running up until the 31st of January. Hopefully you'll be around to celebrate New Year's Eve with us. Neil will be doing a final countdown. There's also a fantastic raffle going on at the moment. So for £2 a ticket, you could win an entire night at the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre. So grab some tickets. The draw is going to be made on New Year's Eve, just before the countdown to the new year. So if you haven't got any tickets yet, get your tickets, because it's going to be a fantastic night if you win it. You can come yourself for an investigation. You can bring a team. You can even sell tickets if you're bringing guests. So it's well worth a few quid to get a ticket, because you've got to be in it to win it. So get your tickets if you haven't got them yet. So over the next few nights, we've got teams and guests from all over coming in to tell us all about themselves, and to let us know what they're up to, what they've been doing, how they work, all sorts of things like that. Here he is, he's back. So stay with us.
Okay, I'm back.
Okie dokie.
Okay then, so we're going to bring Ant to it. If you watch the live feeds on a Saturday night when we're investigating the centre, you've seen Ant, but you probably don't know a lot about him. So let's bring him in. Hi, Ant.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
I've been demoted to the freezer tonight.
Ant is actually sitting in the tea room, and it's freezing in there. And it's nice and warm in the office, though, mate.
Well, unfortunately, because of the social distancing and all of that, I can't really sit in there, can I?
No, you're not allowed. Okay then. So this is Ant. He's done some investigations with us at the centre. So we thought it'd be nice to get to know him a little bit, all you viewers. Please keep sharing. So Ant, let's start then. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what got you into the paranormal.
Okay, well, I've been sort of into the paranormal for, what was it, about 15 years, I think. And the thing that actually got me into it properly happened when I was 13. I was just walking down some abandoned, disused railway line, and I actually got attacked. And it took a long time, actually, because that got me quite scared for a good 3 years. And then I'm not entirely sure why, but one day I just woke up and was just like, okay, so why did this happen? And that's what led me to start doing the investigations and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So, when you say you got attacked, what do you mean? Elaborate a bit more on that.
As in, best way to describe it is I was physically whipped by something that wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
So I've actually still got the scars on my back from it.
So did it actually cut your flesh?
It didn't cut it as such, but the sort of weeks or days or weeks after it happened, it just got redder and redder. And now it's pretty much just scar tissue. So it didn't physically bleed.
Oh, right.
So yeah, it was an interesting one.
Have you been back to try and find out what it was? You know, any history on the place where you were? If anything happened on that railway, or if there's, you know, anything that could describe who or maybe what attacked you?
I've not been back to the actual location, but I have been to various different points along the line. And, you know, similar thing, but I believe because of my age at the time, I would have been about 13. I believe it was probably the workmaster, and because I was just messing around at that age with friends, I think he was trying to get me to work on the railways or something. But I'm not 100% on that.
So is it fairly local?
Loughborough, if that happens. So.
Ooh, I can feel a trip coming on when we can get out.
I was just thinking that, Jane. I think, well, I think we'll have to go over. Can you get onto the same place now?
Yes, it's a public footpath now. I think the line itself was discontinued.
Yeah.
So they basically dug it all up and paved over it. So yeah, it's all the public footpaths.
Sounds like a road trip when Jane's back and we're allowed out. Okay, a couple of comments. Bloss says, I just know he's the gentleman helping up the stairs, unlike some man. I don't know who you mean, Bloss. Sarah says, blimey, Aunt, that must have been terrifying.
It was quite terrifying at the time. Obviously, if it happened now, I probably wouldn't be terrified at all, actually, because I would want it to happen now.
Yeah.
But because it was my first real experience, that definitely put me off for a few years.
Yeah. As you saw, Von says that's shocking.
So did you tell anybody?
Only the people that I was with at the time. So 3 or 4 friends. One of them did believe me, and I think she was actually a witch. I'm not sure if she still is.
Yeah. Yeah, Sarah says, so did your friends witness the attack?
They didn't witness it as such, but I know one person did sort of hear the physical slap.
Yeah.
Obviously, the contact being made, and yeah, we just legged it basically.
I think so would I. Justin said, should go back now and show him what for. Gareth says, we're up for a trip, Neil. That sounds awesome.
Better hire a coach then.
I do think that's a trip, a night out for us one night when we're allowed out.
Yeah, so, that'd be good.
So what happened after that then? Did you sort of just carry on as normal without thinking about it?
I did try to carry on as normal, but it did really put me off everything sort of spiritual, paranormal wise for a few years. So every time someone even mentioned it, or mentioned something different, it would still sort of really creep me out.
Yeah.
As I said, eventually I just woke up one day and was like, well, what's the point in being scared of it? I might as well learn as much as I can, find out why.
So how did you get back into it
then? Actually, believe it or not, I think it was just watching TV one day and Ghost Hunters came on. Obviously the American ones where they try and debunk it. So originally when I did get back into the paranormal, I was all about debunking.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of helped me to sort of get into it properly as well, because it was like, well, if this is happening, there's also a logical reason why it's happening as well.
Yeah. So Haunted Antiques, I imagine that's Amy.
Yeah.
Amy says road trip. I've actually heard about Loughborough track. It's supposed to be quite active down there.
Yes. Well, there's 3 different railways, I believe.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got the old Great Central. That's meant to be fairly active. Obviously, then you've got the main London Midland railway line, which that's probably the same as anywhere else, but you can't get onto them. And then obviously the one that I was on about, which is the disused public footpath one now.
Sounds good. So okay, you started watching Ghost Hunters.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
I just started doing a couple of solo investigations, seeing what I could find. Ended up meeting up with a few friends that was sort of into the same sort of thing. And we just kept going, doing outdoor locations. And then eventually I started actually doing private residence as well at one
right.
stage. That's always interesting.
Mm.
Not a lot of room to move around in a lot of them, though.
No. So you got a question, Jane?
Yeah, so have you started your own team? Were you part of a team at any point?
I did actually start a team early this year. I think it was about March time, so just before lockdown. And obviously we've not been out at all since. It took a while to sort of get a name, but as it stands, we're called Knights of Paranormal. And we're still working on sort of logos, Facebook pages, and all of that. We're unknown, basically.
Yeah, I suppose COVID's put a stop to lots of things anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, hopefully once we can finally get out and do things again, then we can actually start doing things to make ourselves known as well. But at the minute, it's all just theory.
Yeah. So if anyone's watching got any questions for Ant, please put it in the comments. I can put it up. So if there's any location in the UK that you could investigate, apart from HAPRC, of course, where would you like to go?
Edinburgh Vaults.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I've been up to Edinburgh quite a few times, but I've never investigated there myself.
Have you actually been down there?
I've not been down there, no. I've been around the castle, but never even been in the vaults yet.
We did, didn't we, Jane?
Yeah, we've done Edinburgh Vaults. It's fantastic. Edinburgh's supposed to be one of the most haunted cities ever, and it's just amazing.
Yeah.
I do really like the city itself, so the haunted side of it should be even better.
Yeah. My fondest memory of our night in Edinburgh Vaults is driving up there. I think it took 5 or 6 hours to get up there. We couldn't start the investigation till midnight, could we, Jane?
No.
Because they're still doing tours up till midnight. So investigated till 5 in the morning, then drove all the way back again.
Oh wow!
How I didn't kill us all, I don't know, but
some of us opted for an easier weekend and just went up for the weekend on the train.
I think that's what I would do.
But they didn't tell me beforehand. I thought we were all going to drive up. But
we got B&B, and it was nice.
Edinburgh, and plus we got the car locked in this hotel as well. Because I didn't know it was a hotel car park where I parked. I just thought that is free, that'll do. So I had to go knock up the reception and let us out. All good fun. But yeah, Edinburgh Vaults is a good place. You'll enjoy it down there. Well, what about the world? Where would you like to go? Anywhere in the world?
You know what? I don't think I could pick just one location in the world. Obviously, I would love to go and investigate Ed and Lorraine Warren's museum.
Yeah.
See if I can actually get anything out of that, or whether it's just stories. But annoyingly, they won't let me touch or hold the Annabelle doll, which is what I really want to do.
Yeah, I think we'd all like to hold that one, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think anywhere in America, because it's supposedly the most demonic place in the world, according to them. So it'd be interesting to see if it does live up to it.
So what's your thoughts on why America is supposedly so full of demons?
Religion, I think.
Right.
Obviously, the UK was sort of created, and religions came here. But I think more with America, we actually took the religion over there to them.
Right.
Obviously, you got the Native Americans; they were all spiritual anyway, and the ones that are left, they still are. And I think most of it just comes down to lack of knowledge. You know, I'm sure you've had the same, but I've spoken to a lot of Americans, and I've told them what I do. I go out looking for ghosts and all of that, and they're automatically like, "Whoa, no, they're demons, they're demons." But most of it is just they don't know how to communicate with them. They're different.
Yeah. I do. I think the TV shows a lot to do with the Yanks. You know, you watch
Maybe
that
not TV shows, but Hollywood definitely.
Hollywood. We're on that Hollywood subject again. It's
Yeah.
they've got a big responsibility. I don't think they do it very well. Everything's negative.
Because that's what sells. That's what get people to actually view the films and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, let's put some comments up. Justin says, "What's the best evidence Anders found when investigating?"
Actually, I was just in the middle of some wood somewhere. I can't remember where exactly, but there was a small stream going through, which we decided just to set up camp and see what we would sort of do and find there. Was obviously doing a fairly simple investigation, and one of them was obviously EVPs. And upon reviewing the audio, we actually found 2 or 3 children. Obviously, you could tell there were children there, and every single one of them was saying my name, and they wanted me to sort of stay and play with them. So that was interesting. Unfortunately, I don't know where that audio's gone anymore.
No.
But that was a great catch.
Yeah, let's put some more comments up. Biff, who's watching on YouTube, because Zap Bagans, I think that Zap Bagans tells everyone it's demons, whether it's true or not. You say it enough, people start believe. Yeah. What do you reckon to that, Jane?
I do think America is a bit more sort of special in the way with paranormal, and I can't say there's a great land there before the English settlers. It was a very, very spiritual land, and they very much were in complete sort of everything was tied to the land, everything was tied to spirit, and everything. There was a very deep connection there. And of course, when the settlers all come along and sort of ravaged everything and ruined everything, I do think that they were due some sort of payback. And spirit do work in funny ways. But I also think, with some of the nature of people, could it be that they have unleashed things that we're yet to discover? Maybe they do have more sort of what they would class as demonic spirits there, because of the nature of the land and how they practice. So it wouldn't surprise me that they get more sort of bad. I wouldn't say everything's demonic, but maybe there's a lot of spirits there that are not necessarily interpreted as being the right things, and they're just all classed as demons.
Okay, then let's put Vaughn's question up for Ant. What is the most active place you've experienced, Ant and Deck? So what's the most active place you've ever been to, Ant?
I think it'll probably have to be the centre here.
Ah, good man.
It pretty much is on demand here, isn't it? As both of you know.
Yeah.
So from your sort of experiences then, so when you sort of when you very first walked into the centre to sort of where you are now, because you have been involved in a lot of experiments and live feeds and everything else, how much do you feel that the centre has sort of grown your paranormal experience and knowledge?
I would say it's probably sort of doubled, maybe even more than that. Spiritually, I have grown a lot since the first time I walked into the centre, and that's still continuing to grow pretty much every time I walk in as well. So it's definitely helped me a lot, whether that's just me doing that off my own back or someone in the centre that's sort of taken me under their wing and is now one of my spirit guides. I don't know. But it's definitely increased a lot since I started coming.
Yeah, cool. Jane, do you think people are drawn to the centre for a reason?
Yeah, definitely. I think once you've been once, I think your own soul, your own spirit can see and feel the sort of the connection there, and you feel that you can progress, you feel that you can work with spirit. I do feel that this is why people are drawn back to the center. We've seen it so many times, and through that you've now got at the center a massive sort of community of people that come up on a regular basis to get a paranormal fix, because they know they can come up to the center and they can get that paranormal fix that they want. But it sort of triggers, it's like a snowball effect really. But also the amount of people who I've seen come up to the center who had got no sort of awakening or spiritual sort of thing at all, but then they've gone on to do some amazing things, and their connection with the spirit world, or their awakening, their own spiritual journey has grown so much since they've been coming to the centre.
So, and you're quite sensitive as well, Ant, aren't you?
Yeah.
I think you pick up on quite a few things.
Yeah. Back in the early days, I used to be sensitive only towards negative spirits. Whether they were genuinely negative, I don't know, or just misunderstood, as I like to say now. But yeah, I think I'm definitely a lot more open than I was. So I do tend to pick up on a lot more, whether I can physically see them or not. It's like at the minute, I know there's a sort of a gentleman stood by the door just watching me. But there's how I know, I'm not even sure, because going back, say, even 5 years, I would never know that there's anyone stood there.
Yeah, that's cool.
So can you see him? Can you describe him?
I can't see him, no. It's almost like, best way to describe it is if you're watching a really poor movie and someone goes invisible, you can sort of see the fuzzy outline.
Yeah.
That's pretty much where I'm at the minute.
Yeah, that's good then, it'll come.
That's interesting. Okay then. Justin says, people only believe what they're told unless they question what they're told and see for themselves. It's very true. Biff says, is there anywhere Ant doesn't want to investigate? Not that it's no good, but because there would be a sense of dread.
I don't think so, no. I'm always up for investigating anywhere, really.
Yeah.
Sometimes only the once, other times I'll keep going back. Yeah, don't think there's anywhere that I would deliberately choose not to investigate for the first time.
Yeah. What about you? What about you, Jane, with that question? Is there anywhere that you wouldn't go
No,
No.
I'd want to get in everywhere and just see what were there.
Yeah. That's what I thought you'd say. Sarah says, "Hi, Ant. You've taken part in quite a few Ouija sessions recently with good results. What are your thoughts on the Ouija board?
Ooh.
And have your thoughts changed?"
I would say I'm probably on the fence with them still. Yeah, obviously I know they do work, but part of me still thinks that at least one person who's involved in them, deep in their subconscious, it's them moving it. But, whether they're being told how to move it or what, I don't know. But I know I used to be one of these anti-boards, never touch them. And then the first time I used one, which would have been about 5 years ago, it was almost like the adrenaline rush you get from it. And as I just realized that they weren't that bad. There's nothing to fear from them.
Yeah. What about you, Jane? What is your thoughts on the Ouija boards?
For me, the Ouija board is just a great tool for communication. I have been on them myself, and I've seen some amazing stuff happen. I just think if you're in the right frame of mind and you're respectful to spirit and you've got a true heart, then the boards will always work for you.
Yeah. Bros says she can remember when you first came up to the centre, and
It's got a better memory than me then. I can only just remember.
It's been a while ago, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll still fix it.
Yeah, I think it was about 18 months ago I first walked in. And yeah, I was in a bit of a bad place back then anyway.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to come in, and I'll always remember sort of how good it felt to just walk in. The back rooms, they seemed a bit hazy at that time. Obviously, the more I've been here, the more I've realised that actually I don't think there's anything truly malicious there.
Yeah.
Most of it seems just a bit of fun, doesn't it? Really.
Yeah. So what made you first come up then? How did you hear about it? And what made you think, oh yeah, I'm going to go up there?
Actually, I'd probably not been investigating for about a year or so, and I just went onto Google haunted locations in Hinckley just to see what, if anything, came up, and the centre was the top of the list.
There we were.
Yeah.
Cool. Justin says extraterrestrial. That's interesting, because we do have a little ET, don't we, Jane?
We do. We do.
And Bloss says, see Jane's eating her Christmas chocolates.
Nothing wrong with that.
Bloss says he sat very quietly on a chair in the tea room.
Yes, I believe I did.
You were quiet then, weren't you, Ant?
I don't think I particularly wanted to sort of sit down and relax for a bit, but yeah,
we forced you.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't my time then.
Yeah. Von says Ant's answers are very interesting. He's questioning himself, still skeptical in some ways, refreshing to listen to his ongoing journey.
I am very skeptical of things, which is weird because it's pretty much what I do. But I think everyone has to be slightly skeptical, don't they? I know you have been a couple of times as well, Neil. Something absolutely amazing has happened, and you're still doubting it. You're still trying to find logical explanations for it all.
Yeah, I think that's what we have to keep doing at the centre, because if we're like on the evidence show that the doll's eyes, if we didn't question things like that, we could easily lose our reputation, couldn't we?
Yeah. Well, when was it? Last week, or was it the week before? When it was Amy was doing the Esther's method in Grandma Mary's chair.
Yeah.
I know I picked up on the doll's eyes myself, and someone else did in the comments on video.
Yeah.
But that really did just look like the lighting at that time. So it is one of those. Did it happen, or was are we just trying to think it's happening to make it seem good?
Yeah. Okay. Justin says, oh no, wrong one. Justin says, when I closed my eyes when Ant was talking about the blurred image, that is what I could see, an extraterrestrial, which is interesting, because we do have a picture of what we think is an ET, don't we, Jane?
We do.
That we caught in the old tea room. Justin now says, I have a skeptical approach to investigating, but I do believe. Something that always amazes me in the paranormal is when people try too hard to debunk. I hate the word debunk, but I've not got my own word yet. I hate it when they try too hard to debunk. For example, it was someone down the street shouting, or someone opening the car boot that caused a vacuum that opened the door inside the building, because you can debunk everything, couldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, technically, if you've got enough knowledge, everything that's paranormal has a perfectly logical explanation to it. So you can literally debunk everything if you wanted to.
Yeah, I just think you shouldn't go into too deep. What do you reckon, Jane?
Well, I'm not sure if you can debunk everything. There are some things that are unexplained. I mean, look at our mirror that we were looking at earlier, the smash mirror.
Yeah.
And look at Blueface. I mean, we still can't explain either of those two. So I do think there are some things, there's this very small percentage of stuff that you really cannot explain. And that's the really interesting stuff for me. But I do think you've got to be a bit skeptical, because you want to be confident that the information or whatever you've captured is sort of, genuine paranormal stuff. And you don't just want to be chucking anything and everything out there, because people will still see through stuff that's not real. And then, like you say, that's when your reputation then goes up in smoke. We've got to be confident that what we're putting out there is good paranormal activity.
Yep, that's right.
And you never know. Just because you don't have an answer for it, you could put it up and someone go immediately, this is what it is, and then you're learning for next time as well. So it's swings and roundabouts with it. But I do agree, you can't really be too skeptical over all evidence, because otherwise you're chucking everything away, really, aren't you?
Yeah.
You gotta get the fine line, haven't you?
Yeah.
Okay, then let's put Von's comment up. I remain skeptical with many things. That's why I like the centre. The experiments to find out if anything logical made the occurrences is as interesting. Yeah, like I said during the evidence show, when we get time, we will try and recreate with a night vision camera with an IR light the doll's eyes. But it needs to be exactly the same, because we can see where the light is on the glass dome. So that's what we need to do. One day that we will do it, and we'll put the both pieces of footage together, like we did with the mirror, isn't it, Jane? We spent hours up here, trying to recreate that. There's no way anyone could have pushed that. I can say that 100%. Okay, Justin says, I do see spirit or visions in my head. It's only been happening for about a year. That's good, Justin. Keep going. Steph says, I hate the word debunk too, Neil. Yeah, I just hate it. I don't. We need to think of our own word up.
You did think of one at one point. We were using
did.
it for a long time.
Yeah, but I can't remember now because I'm getting old. You are making me so hungry, Jane. Keep eating.
I've got to keep my strength up. It's a long old haul tonight.
Bloss says, been a great night, but got to go. Just getting updates on my mother-in-law's operation. I hope she's all right, Bloss. And we will see you soon.
Yeah, take care.
Biff says, what's Ant's views on aliens, cryptids, Bigfoot, etc.? Do you think it's all linked, i.e. portals, allowing those and spirits through? That's a good question, actually.
That's a very good question. Views on aliens, yes, they're out there somewhere. We just haven't officially found them. Bigfoot, well, you know, who's to say that it's not the spirit of some ancient mythical creature that's completely extinct now? So again, it could be out there. Portals, yeah, I would say there are a lot of portals, both naturally made and sort of made by humans, and they will allow a lot of spirits to come through. So
Yeah. Okay, Jane, what do you think to that?
Oh, how long you got?
Oh, wow, about
Well,
2.5 hours.
I do think some things are separate, but they are all classed as in sort of paranormal. You know, I do believe in the aliens and things, and the alien that we've seen, you know, our little ET, you know, I believe he is there. But as with the cryptids and things like that, I do believe that they can be things that are sort of flukes of nature, or sort of some sort of descendants of other creatures and things like that through evolution. But also Bigfoot. I did read somewhere that Bigfoot were actually the true line of the Neanderthals through evolution, and that, you know, the human, we're not descended from the Neanderthals. So, you know, there's a lot of things in there that that spark a lot of curiosity for me and a lot of big questions. So I just keep reading all about it. But as for portals, I do think there are natural portals all over, and I do believe that there are portals where people can travel through space and time. I think even NASA have found a couple. You know, that's why they're so, you know, some of these sites are so heavily guarded with military and stuff like that. And there is even speculation that they have found things like a Stargate, and that they have you know, there is possibility of travel through them. So I don't think we'll ever know the truth, because we'll never be allowed to know the truth. But I do think there's a lot of things out there that we just don't understand yet, but they could all be completely real and completely true.
Good answer. Okay, Justin says, you had Yvonne, we have to question everything we see. We would just be kidding ourselves otherwise. Yeah, yeah, we do question everything at the centre. One says, I agree, Neil, but there are some things that have to be really delved into scientifically to be able to debunk it. But if we keep an open mind to what is the paranormal. Yeah. Justin loves Stargate.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you think your next stage in your development is going to be? Because like we said, you are sensitive and you do sense things. So how do you want to progress, or do you want to progress?
well, of course, I want to progress. Yeah, wouldn't everyone? I suppose. The next stage, I think, will probably be opening up enough to be even sort of basic mediumship, be able to communicate with spirits and stuff
Yeah.
properly, rather than most of it just being guesswork and having to look. Obviously, I know a couple of times when we've been doing the lives, I have had various different visions come into my head, and it's not just been in this building. I've had them at home as well, but always a similar kind. I think I spoke to you about that, Jane.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think my next stage will probably be actual communicating with the spirits now.
Mm. This all sounds interesting. You got any questions, Jane?
Yeah. Well, so following on from that, what would be your real sort of buzz to sort of experience? I mean, would it be sort of seeing a full-bodied apparition? Would it be, traveling, doing some astral traveling? Would it be, what would be your ultimate sort of paranormal experience that you'd really like to sort of experience?
I think at the minute, the ultimate one would have to be a full-bodied apparition. But that's only because that's the only thing I've wanted to see in the sort of 15 odd years that I've been following the paranormal. It's always been about that one full-bodied apparition that, someone just walks straight in and then vanishes before your eyes, kind of thing. But I think after that happens, it probably would have to be interdimensional travel.
Jane's done that, haven't you, Jane?
I have. Yeah, it's good fun.
It's good fun.
The only way to leave the house properly these days without your body.
Yeah.
the in way to travel. Don't have to worry about COVID or social distancing that way.
That's it.
No, that's true.
Perhaps that's the future. Perhaps that's the new normal. Astral projecting.
But then you wouldn't really be able to do much, would you? You couldn't say astral project to the supermarket and pick up a bottle of milk and then come back. So
no, okay. But it depends what you want to use it for.
Yeah.
Just think of the places you can go.
That's true.
Okay. Justin says, why do you think people see full apparition of spirits? Do they seek to give messages to give someone? Okay, let's start with you, Anne, for that one.
I think it is all to do with messages, yes. A lot of people have reported seeing full-bodied apparitions, and most of them do have a certain message to sort of relay once they've managed to communicate. But then you've also got the likes of the residual hauntings, the stone tape theories and all of that, where they're just out there doing their own business. I think it all comes down to the individual, because it seems to be a lot more total skeptics see full-bodied apparitions than a lot of believers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure exactly how true that would be.
Okay, what about you, Jane?
I think people see them because spirit want them to see them. Spirit will manifest in many forms. It could just be an orb, it could be, say, a full-bodied apparition, it could be through other means, EVPs or whatever, but they will manifest themselves, an image of themselves, in order for you to see it, whether that's for you to learn more, or to, regarding your intent, if you've been sending out messages saying that you want to see somebody, or whether you're just being a bit ignorant and just shutting off, and they've just shown you themselves just to sort of get your attention. There's lots of reasons why they can manifest. But you know, I've seen quite a lot of full-bodied apparitions, and it always surprises me and knocks me off my feet a bit every time it happens. So you know, it's something that you never really get used to. But even you've seen the pair of legs, haven't you, Neil, when you come out the toilet?
Oh,
So,
I did, and that was a bit of a shock.
but I've seen quite a few of them up at the centre. So keep sending the thoughts out and telling them that you want to see them, and they will probably show themselves.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Von says, I've seen 3 full-bodied apparitions. You're lucky, Von. Justin says, what can you use astral projection for? I've heard of it, but not sure of it. That's for you one, Jane.
Well, I use it to sort of go out travelling, really. I'm still in, as I would consider, I'm still in sort of learning stages of it. But the more you do, the easier it becomes. And for me, it's an amazing experience because you can go up to the stars. I've sort of gone up and gone off the planet and just looked at all the stars in the sky, and it's just amazing. It's just something that takes a lot of practice, and it's the same work with any sort of spiritual thing. You've just got to keep practice at it, keep working at it, and you know, make the commitment to do it, and just keep at it.
Yep, okay. Von says, oh no, that's not Von's. Von says they were all for different reasons. One, in search of the sensitive feelings, emotions within the home. Second one, to see my daughter and to know they were around. The third one, they were lost and wanted company. It's interesting stuff. Okay. Justin says, wow, that's amazing. I don't know how I would react if I seen one. Bond says, I was shocked but not frightened at the time. Dave says, if like in Beetlejuice, there was a Book of the Dead and showing yourself as a spirit in a bit of a no-no, would you think them showing it to a skeptic isn't considered so bad because the latter isn't going to believe anyway? I.e., do you think spirits are just plain mischievous?
I think a lot of them are just plain mischievous. They just want a bit of fun in the afterlife, basically. But as a whole, no. They're just here to do their own business and carry on with their afterlife.
Yeah.
I think more people see ghosts than they let on because they reckon that 1 in 5 people have seen a ghost. And I think it's one of those things that you could quite happily see a ghost, but then not tell anybody because people think you're crackers, and particularly skeptics as well. And the amount of skeptics that have come up to me and said, you know, I don't believe in any of this rubbish, but I have seen this. Can you explain what it means? Well, if you don't believe in it, why are you even, you know, why is it even a question if you don't believe in it and you just think it's rubbish? Why have you not just dismissed it? But there's been a lot of people that will just come up to me and say, you know, what is this about? I've seen this, I've experienced that. What does it all mean? But I don't believe in any of it. So, you know, I think there's a lot more sightings, and I think people experience a lot more than what they let on.
Yeah.
I suppose technically all you've got to do is go and walk around town. How many times have you been following someone and, you know, they've turned a corner or gone into a shop or something, and you don't see them at all for the rest of the day, kind of thing? You know, there could be hundreds of actual spirits just walking around town going about their business, and no one realizes because they look human, they're walking like a human, and they're not interfering with anyone.
Yeah.
Okay, Gary says, I've been travelling, but think it's by no means accidental.
Gary's just a born traveller.
When Gary did the it was the meditating, wasn't it, Jane, with you?
Yeah,
he did. He used to go everywhere. Bless him, our Gary. So, you got any more questions, Jane?
Oh, I just think what what does Ant feel, that he wants to work towards in the paranormal? What would he like to sort of achieve long term?
Long term, probably mediumship, actually. Obviously, I know that's going to take years and years to accomplish, and you're still learning yourself. So, yeah, I think it's just the actual knowledge of it that I want to accomplish. Once I feel that I've learned enough, then it'll probably be time to hang my boots up then, if it ever gets to that stage.
You never stop learning.
No.
You see some of the books I've had for Christmas.
Any pictures in them?
No, just big words.
I can do medium-sized words.
I don't like big words. Okay, Von says, sorry, Anne, we've lost you here. I've spoken many times to the first one, but it's only appeared as an apparition once. I was scared, then it came too close. I had many experiences over the few years and witnessed before the apparition. The second one smiled sweetly and looked down at my daughter and vanished, but I think I was stunned at the time. The third one, I spoke to and offered food.
Did they accept the food?
That'd be interesting. Michelle says, I've seen quite a few for long apparitions in the corner of my eye, and sometimes I can see straight on for long. Sometimes they look like me and you, and I don't even realize that they are spirit. But what I see and other people see is totally different. Yeah. So Jane, this corner of the eye business, what do you think? What do you think that is, or why is that?
Well, I mean, when I was learning, they always said that if you feel a presence around you, or if you see somebody in the corner of your eye and you look and they're not there, then that is sort of the start, really, of sort of the spirit communication. I always feel that as sort of being as a couple of stages on. I always say that the first stage generally that they will come in your dreams and talk to you in your dreams. Well, this is sort of a couple of stages on where you then start to see people, or you start to see things in the corner of your eye and you look and it's not there. And that's then sort of like the next stage, that once you can sort of manage that and work with that, you'll then move on to the next bit.
Cool. Okay, I can see Kate's in the green room. Hi, Kate. She can hear us, but no one can see her. Blimey, it's running like clockwork.
You sound surprised.
One says, and the little girl smiled at the food and was happy. We left her shortly after as she was stepped further back. So that's interesting about the food. Justin says, I've seen something on the stairs a couple of times at my house, and I've seen an object shake very vigorously when it was on the ground for 10 seconds or more. That's cool. So we've got 5 minutes left, Ant. So what's gone quick again, isn't it? So what's the next thing you want to sort of do in your progression?
I think it would have to be more control. I'm sort of working towards that anyway.
Yeah.
But, occasionally I do get quite distracted.
Yeah.
I could be in the middle of a vision or whatever, and suddenly my brain wants to go off and do something else.
So, that's a bit like me.
Yeah. So I think I just need to anchor down that sort of control of it, and hopefully the rest will follow shortly after.
Yeah. So do you think, since you've been doing the live feeds at the centre during this lockdown and doing work at the centre, do you think that's helped you along your journey?
Definitely, yeah. I know I have definitely had a lot more visions these past couple of months.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's definitely helped improve myself.
Brilliant, brilliant. So, any last words, Jane, for Ant or to Ant?
No, I just think he's done brilliantly. I mean, he's from the live feeds that we've seen and from what he's been doing up at the centre, particularly over lockdown. I think it's great that he's actually, you know, he wants to progress, he wants to work with spirit, and he wants to do as much as he can to progress himself, and that's a massive thing. You know, in spiritualism, there's a big thing. One of the principles is personal responsibility, and that's you taking taking responsibility for your own progression and for your own learning and everything else. And I think he's well on the way to doing that. So I think he's doing really well.
That's good. Okay, the last comment on this part of the night. Michelle says, I was at work and one standing in the doorway. I was trying to get past it. Everyone was laughing at me because they couldn't see the spirit, but it just looks like a normal person to me. And of course, Michelle is the lady who sent lots of that evidence that we had at the start of tonight, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, so it's time to put an end to this section of the night one of the ParaMeet. So just want to say thanks to Ant, because Ant stepped in at the last minute because a guy cancelled. So thanks, Ant, for joining us.
No, thank you for having me on as well.
Okay, it's been interesting chatting. Okay, Von says, you're doing great, Ant. He is well on the way. Well done. Keep in there. Great chat. Thank you. Gary says, great show, Ant. So we're going to get ready for the next guest, who's Kate, who's waiting eagerly. I can see her poised. She's laughing. I know Jane's especially looking forward to talking to Kate because it's all about fairies and fae and all sorts of lovely stuff. So we're going to kick Ant off in a nice way.
Yeah.
I'll put the kettle on for you.
You get the kettle on, Ant, and a nice cup of tea. I could do with that. I think we need some biscuits out soon. So we'll say goodnight to Ant, and we'll see you soon.
Yes. Good night, Anne. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
And you.
I'm going to nip to the loo because you've already been.
You nip to the loo, Jane.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll bring Kate on. Hi, Kate.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
How's your Christmas been?
It's okay. I was actually at work yesterday because the centres had to close because of the COVID. Well, it's not closed down. We can't have teams in, so I've had to get myself a proper job.
Oh no,
That's
awful.
I'm not happy about it. But I'm doing something good. I'm working in a COVID testing centre, so I'm doing some good.
Good.
And we open at Christmas Day. Would you believe people go for a COVID test on Christmas Day?
That's got to be desperate.
I couldn't believe it, but there was about 8 of us there yesterday, and I said, let's take bets on how many people are going to come in. I said, I don't think we'll see anybody, but we had 12 people come in.
Were they poorly or just wanting the test?
I think they were just mental, personally. I hope they're not watching.
Oh, bless you.
Did you have a nice Christmas?
It's been very quiet, obviously because of the COVID. It's been quiet, but it's a nice time of year anyway. So
yeah. Jane's been.
Hello.
Good. Hello.
Hello there.
How are you doing?
All right, not too bad, thanks.
Good.
Okay, so we'll crack on because it's continuous live feed.
It's crazy.
Hours.
I know. I explained to somebody earlier what you were doing, and they were like, "Over Christmas, this is madness." But I think it's brilliant.
It is madness, but once you get to know me, you'll realise I do come up with some mad ideas, and it's every night. This ParaMeet is every night up until New Year's Eve.
You're going to be shattered. You're both going to be shattered.
I'm shattered now.
I've not got a lot to my diary at the moment anyway, so I'm all right.
No, your diary's still quite empty, isn't it, Jane?
It is.
It's full for next year, I'll tell you.
That's good.
Okay then. So, Kate, did you have a nice Christmas? Apart from being
Yeah.
quiet.
Yeah, it has. It's been quite quiet. Unfortunately, I wasn't feeling great. I mean, my big time over Christmas is on the solstice, and I wasn't able to do that much really. I kind of dragged myself out of bed and did some bits just to bring in the solstice, but it's been quiet. I think a second Christmas is in order for a lot of people this year, so I think we should all have a second one. Sort of summertime. Let's have a Christmas barbecue.
I'm fully agreement. I don't see the reason for Christmas being the cold and the dark, and let's have it mid-June, June the 23rd.
Yeah. Perfect.
What more?
Perfect.
She's off there, look.
Bless.
So, if anyone's got any questions for Kate, please put them in the chat. Ant's getting the kettle on for me now. Look.
Was he literally in the other room just then on that last one? Oh, bless him.
Because you can't do it in the same room because you get echo.
See now.
So, okay, Kate, if anyone doesn't know who you are, I know we've had you as a guest before, and hopefully we'll have you again. Oh, we've got you again soon, haven't we?
Yes, next year at some point.
On a different show.
Mm-hmm.
So, tell everyone who you are and what you do.
So I'm Kate Ray. I'm a paranormal investigator, and I work for GPS, the Ghost Finder Paranormal Society, which is Barry Guy's baby. Just plug him there. He'll like that. And it seems that through my experience of being with GPS that I've become sort of a go-to person on all things that are non-human entities, and particularly the fairy world, which sounds quite strange in the paranormal realm, but it's something that's come up time and time again with different people and in different circumstances. And because of my previous passion, if you like, with the paranormal being in the realms of non-spooky, if you like, but more on the face side of things, people have been asking me questions, and sometimes I can't answer those questions. So I've been going out and asking other people their opinion and their opinions of the fairy realm. So I'm gathering bits of knowledge in my toolkit as I'm going, but it has become definitely something that's been highlighted for me. The fairy person. I think I said that last time, and I said it differently. I didn't like it, and one of my mates messaged me and said, "We're going to call you that now. You are the fairy woman. I don't want to be known as the fairy woman, please."
Well, early on we had Kate Sherrill on, who does all cemeteries and burials, and I think it was Bloss says, "Oh, Kate, the cemetery lady."
Yeah.
So you're the fairy woman now. Kate's the cemetery lady.
I think the cemetery lady sounds quite cool, actually. I quite like that title. Maybe we could think of something more spooky other than the fairy. Maybe just non-human entity lady, but that's a bit long. I'm sure somebody can come up with something.
I'm sure that we're in the chat. I know Jane's always excited to talk to you, so we'll let Jane ask you a question, because Jane's really interested in all this stuff as well.
I know.
Yeah, I've been really quite excited. Do you think that this time of year, where there's much more excitement and people are much more family oriented, do you think sort of the Fae are sort of excited with it because of the atmosphere and the environment, because of the the excitement? Do you think
definitely.
they sort of
Yeah, I think that there's lots of things in play this time of year. The solstice is a massive thing when it comes to traversing any other realms, really. We just had the winter solstice, the summer solstice. Everybody knows that that's a time when fairies sort of traverse the field between their world and ours. But the winter solstice is also equally important to them because it has its origins. Christmas has its origins very much rooted in Celtic paganism. And we adhere to a lot of the rules within that pagan tradition. We bring in foliage from outside. We have Christmas trees, which are very pagan. And this is something that they relate to because whether we like it or not, we do honour nature at this time of year in a lot of our Christmas traditions. That on top of it, where you've got people who are super excited, especially children, and they're building that energy, the Fae definitely get interested. I mean, it's also that we forget as paranormal investigators that this time of year as well is a time when we do get a lot of interaction with spirit. You know, loved ones coming back and checking up on people. There is that thinning of the veil with Yuletide and the solstice. So you have this mix of energy going off, and it definitely you'll definitely have opportunities at this time of year, and right the way up until sort of 12 nights after Christmas is traditionally when things are at the height of opportunity to have interactions.
Yeah, I'll just put this comment up from Biff.
Where's my tutu? Oh no, please. You know, many moons ago, I used to go to quite it's the biggest British fairy festival on a regular basis, and I always used to refuse to wear the bog standard fairy gear. And one particular year, I made a pair of wings out of barbed wire, and had a sort of a German army hat, because I can't do girly very well. So I'm afraid the tutu is in mothballs right now. I'm sorry to say that.
Where do you go from that tutu? Okay then. Do you know this COVID business, and we're all locked up and all this? Do you think that's made any difference to the Fae world?
Yeah, I mean, right from the very beginning, bizarrely enough, I was contacted by a group of people who were working specifically with Fae energy and to do with bringing light back into the world right at the very beginning of COVID. And that's, you know, if anybody out there is into sort of their spiritual stuff, it was, you know, in line with things like light working and Reiki working. And we had all had experiences where we'd felt as though the Fae were very interested in what was going off in the human realm with all of this. And there was one side of it that was because we were going out more into natural spaces and places, because we didn't have much else to do other than our 2 hours exercise or whatever it was at the beginning, that we were starting to appreciate the sort of the natural lay of the land and all things in it. And it did start a rise in sort of interest into the Fae. And one thing I had noticed and other people had noticed was that people were putting fairy doors around woodlands and doing, you know, where they hide the pebbles, and making those very fairy as well, and hiding those in different places as little treasure hunts. So there seemed to be this kind of this up in interest with things that were more magical. And I do attribute that to the fact that when there is times of hardship, that people do want to reconnect with magic in their life, and they want to reconnect with nature, and the fairy realm does that on both levels, definitely. So, but yeah, there has been a rise in interest, and on the darker side of things, the Fae, some of them, from what I can gather from other people's connections, haven't been so happy about how things have been handled, and have been helping people to gain and gather strength. So yeah, lots of different reports coming in from different people.
That's interesting. You got a comment, Jane?
Yes, I was reading a book before Christmas, and in this book is called The Demonologist's Handbook. I don't know if you've heard of it. And in there they talk about, you know, sort of banishing fairies, and even classing, you know, some possessions that could be down to fairies and the Fae and stuff like that. And I was a bit sort of dubious with that, really. But do you feel that they could be that evil and that nasty, where they could be classed as demonic and need sort of exercising?
I think that there is a real spectrum within the Fae realm, and there are some beliefs that the lighter side of fairy, the lighter side of Fae, are definitely sort of connected with the angelic realm, and they are light beings, but they're kind of lesser in the hierarchy. But equally, there are theories that you do get that opposite end of the scale, where Fae can be seen as on the lesser demonic side of things. So I think that there is that scope. I think one thing that we have to consider when we're considering the realm of Fae is that it doesn't operate in the same kind of energetic way that the human realm does, and they don't adhere to the sort of moral structures and categorization that we do as human beings. So what we deem as evil and what we deem as wrong is something that they would probably not comprehend. It's when I have come across cases of Fae who have been causing havoc or been showing demonic kind of energies, it's very, very complex. It's not as though they just poof when they decide to do it. There's usually a pattern or reasoning behind these things happening. Whereas I think a true demonic, there doesn't have to be particularly a rhyme or reason for those things to occur to a certain person. I think that the Fae world is a little more specific about why they get involved with human beings. But I do believe that they can be seen on that end of the spectrum.
Yeah, very interesting.
So do you believe Fae are everywhere? Is it just woodlands, or are they in the cities?
Yeah, I mean, they can be everywhere. I mean, they usually concentrate in places of high vibration. So obviously natural spaces and the wilder spaces are definitely of a higher vibrational property and have more energy in for what I would say that the typical fairy would enjoy. And they're usually attached, from what I've read and from speaking to people, they're usually attached to those places because of the natural elements, and a lot of them have associations with natural elements. However, towns and cities are not devoid of them, and especially if people are working with them and making efforts to invite them into that area, then yes, definitely they're kind of all over, I suppose. I think where we are, they are, and where nature is, they are. So, yeah.
Do you think the belief in them is growing?
Yeah, I think it's growing. I think it's going back to being a more adult subject, sort of moving away from just being something within the realms of children, which it's only been in the last sort of 70 to 100 years that we've moved out of it being a very adult subject. And that's nice to see, because it's something that less people are snickering at when I say I'm into fairies. People are more curious as opposed to looking at me like I'm a nutter, which is definitely good on my behalf. And I think people are getting to grips with the fact that this whole image that we have of them, that was very much born out of the Victorian era, of the scantily clad, sort of butterfly winged, sexy little pixie types. We're moving away from that and understanding that there are a plethora of energies within the realm. It's not all love, light and unicorns. In fact, from my experience, it's far from it. It's a full range of experiences.
So have you ever come across a really, really nasty one? Have you experienced one?
Personally, it's what you class as really nasty. I mean, I've personally experienced cheeky, slightly malevolent. Yes and no. It's not like demonic. They will get a kick out of playing games, out of entertaining themselves, and if that means spooking and scaring a human being, they're gonna entertain that. And they can go into the realms of being physical with people as well, which is often where this line is between people who think they're being haunted by a malevolent spirit or a demonic, and it can actually be fae. You know, it's a very, very fine line.
You got a question, Jane?
Yeah, so moving on from that, earlier on we were talking to Kate about the cemeteries in London that have all been dug up because of HS2. And we know that there's been many ancient woodlands sort of destroyed because of HS2. I mean, how do you think the Fae would sort of cope with that? Because it's on a massive scale, isn't it? And do you think that that could be, you know, because of their cheeky nature, do you think they will have some sort of cause for payback and perhaps take some action against the people doing it?
Definitely. I think there's going to be problems. I mean, I've seen images of really ancient trees being felled, and the difference, you know, within a couple of weeks from these sites being cleared, these beautiful sites, they're being cleared and they're devastated. And you can see the pain of the land, and that they're definitely going to carry that with them. I mean, we know stories, particularly in Ireland, where councils have actually changed routes of roads because they have been warned that the fairies have a tree or have a fairy fort, and they've actually diverted roads around those. I mean, we see that in Scandinavia as well. So in England, we don't take things particularly seriously for that. And like you say, the widespread devastation that's going to come from putting train tracks down, I think there is going to be problems. You know, if they're going through cemeteries as well as through ancient places, it's not a good combination, really.
That's a bit scary. I know you've come across this sort of thing before, haven't you, Jane? You went to do an investigation, didn't you?
Yeah.
And it's because they took a tree out of something. Can I remember?
Yeah,
right?
they took like a little woodland sort of bit out where they were building the new houses, and I've already, you know, we have discussed this before, and I did end up taking them to Burbage Common and Woods and telling them to sort of re-site themselves there. And with that all being protected, they should be protected there. And it's a big wood, so I'm hoping that they're all settled and happy. But it's one of the things that's devastating, I think, when you just see trees, woodlands, wildlife just ripped up, discarded, tossed aside. Because once it's gone forever, and we can never replace that. And then people wonder why foxes come into their gardens or why all this stuff's going on, and we disrupt the land. We disrupt the balance of the land, and it just doesn't seem to matter as long as there's a profit in it.
And it's done without respect, isn't it? I mean, previously when we'd gone into woodlands and chopped down a tree, you know, even going out and getting your Christmas tree, it was done with thanks and with gratitude. And you'd go out with an axe yourself and do it. So you'd be out in that environment, you'd be seeing and choosing your tree and having that connection with it. And now it's just, you know, it's done without thought or without care that what's happening has great effect and long-term effect. It's not good at all.
Yeah. Okay, I'll put some comments up. Justin says, how do you know it's fairy and not spirit?
Oh, good question. Ask. That's a starting point. Like I said, there can be very little distinction between fairy activity and spirit activity. One thing I do know about the Fae, and it's something that is cited historically through all kinds of encounters, is they can't lie, they can't fib to you. So if you ask them a question, they can peruse around answering it, and they can maybe answer it with riddles, but they cannot lie. So if you say, are you a pixie, what are you, and they have to tell the truth. They don't know about outright lying. But in terms of the kind of activity that you would get, say if it was in your home or if it was in a natural environment, it's very, very similar. So it is quite difficult to distinguish between the two, but it's very important to do that, because getting rid of spirit if you don't want them around and getting rid of fae if you don't want them around are different kettles of fish. The things that would normally work on, say, a human spirit or entity, or even on the demonic side of things, are very, very different to how you would deal with fae. For instance, fairies are meant to have an aversion to iron, and I'm still digging deep about why that is. There is some bits that I've come across, but they have an an aversion to iron, and there are different things that you can do to sort of banish them out of your environment with that. Whereas a human spirit, I don't think would be affected by that. It's the same with things like sage. You know, Fae wouldn't be affected by sage, and they wouldn't be affected particularly by prayer or Christian, you know, sort of in a Christian context.
Mhm.
So I suppose that it's when you get to the crux of that that you would be able to find out what you're dealing with. Yeah, I think it's just ask and collate your information. As a paranormal investigator, you would make sure that you were, you know, doing all your EVP work and sort of and you know, all your camera work and whatever else that you do, and collate that information to help you decide what you might be dealing with.
It's fascinating. Sorry, Kate, we've lost you. Gary says, my youngest lad said he'd seen a fairy, said, come and look. I laughed and said, don't be silly. Then some months ago, something was on TV and he pointed out a picture of the one he saw. And with what I've seen, heard, I actually believe he did see one.
Yeah.
And then he says, that was in our garden near the house.
Yeah. A lot of gardens do have them, and especially if you're a keen gardener, or even if you go out and appreciate your garden on a regular basis, and particularly children, they do have those experiences. They're a lot more open because they're not sort of bogged down with the kind of psychological constraints that us as adults have of, you know, being told not to be silly and you don't see these things and these things don't exist. Kids just accept that it's there and it's happening. They don't second guess these things that happen to them. So a lot of incidents of recent years have been from accounts from children, you know, having these encounters.
Justin says Christmas trees are grown for that purpose.
They are nowadays.
They are now. Ant says, can a human or animal become a fairy in another life?
Oh, this is a question that it's a good one. It is a good one. It's one that I have been looking into sort of further afield this year about. There are people who believe that we can reincarnate from Fae and into Fae, just as there are beliefs that we can reincarnate into animal or into human from animal. So there are people who are out there who do believe that they are have an incarnation of being in the Fae realm and have come through from that realm into having an earthly human experience, and there are lots of people who genuinely believe that, and I'm not here to disbelieve anybody. You know, I feel like I have a connection with that world, so who's to say that that's not something that's going to happen?
Good question. Do you think you've always had this association with Fae, even when you were little?
Yeah, I think so. Perhaps not in the same way. I've never been sort of sparkly about the Fae world. It's never been a fairy tale world for me. It's always been something that's very connected to the earthiness of nature, and has that same quality that can be benign or malevolent. But growing up as a child, it was part of my, I suppose, part of my vocabulary that Fae were there. I grew up. Sherwood Forest was my playground, and I spent a lot of time in Sherwood Forest. It's a very magical forest, and there was always that sense of different energies in the woods that everybody kind of talked about and knew about. So there were certain places that felt heavier, there were certain places that felt lighter, but I didn't play in a fairy sense. I didn't have that kind of, like I say, that glittery fairy side to me. I never saw it in that way. You know, these were energies that were custodians of the natural world, and there were ones that you didn't piss off, basically, you know, that you respected, and you had admiration for us and respect, as opposed to sort of, you know, fluttering around and playing with glitter and mud pies with them.
Yeah. Okay.
I still think that you should leave, you know, you should leave offerings in your garden. I do leave offerings in my garden for them. And I think that goes a massive way, regardless of what season it is, whether it's snowing or the sun's shining or whatever. And I do believe that, you know, leaving offerings in your garden is one of the best ways to make friends with them.
Yeah, definitely appease them, if nothing else.
When you say offerings, what do you mean?
Well, sometimes if say, like with my tomato plants, if when I collected all my tomato plants in, I left a few tomatoes on the plant for the fairies, or one of the other things I did was just leave some of the say like the green beans on the plant for them, or if I've got some flowers, I could take some flowers out there. And it depends really, even simple things like dandelions. I collect some dandelions up and put them in a little bundle for them.
Blimey. I do apologise. I'm showing my ignorance here. I must admit, I don't know anything about this, but it's fascinating listening to you. It really is.
See what I have to work with?
This is why I pay you mega bucks, Jane, and give you a year's holiday. Come on. Justin says, what's the worst things and best thing the Fae have done?
I'm assuming that's on a personal level.
Yeah.
I think let's start with the best. So I've had probably 4 or 5 physical encounters, ones that have come into the physical realm. And I suppose one of my favourites was one of the most fleeting, which again occurred in Sherwood Forest. And that was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I was just walking the dog. Just walking around the woods, walking the dog, and it wasn't in a particular area that I felt connected to or had ever felt connected to really. And I out of the corner of my eye, caught something about head height and probably about a metre or so away, and turned, and my first reaction was, oh, it's a fairy. And then I was like, oh shit, it's a fairy. And sort of turned away and then put my gaze back in that direction, and this thing was still there. And it was probably the size of a very large dragonfly, and was upright, and it was just emitting light. It had a very sort of dense light body, and then it was I think this is probably where the wing ideas come from, because it was emitting light as would be wings. And as I was staring at it, and it was only probably, I don't know, 30 seconds, a minute the most, it kind of suddenly went out like like the old-fashioned TVs, and you turn them off, and they used to sort of zap off, and it just kind of popped back out. And that was probably the most traditional looking or traditional encounter with the Fae realm that I've had. I have had a couple of not so nice experiences, perhaps more on the not so nice experiences, to be quite honest, because that's the realm I'm dealing with. The when it comes to the paranormal, people don't usually ask me questions to come and chat to their nice fairy folk that they have. They ask me to come and sort of help them sort out the more cheeky or malevolent side of things. I had a personal encounter. I was just at the end of writing up an article and about the Fae, and the very last part of the article I had put in quite detailed work of how to rid yourself of fairies. And I put in a lot of the things that I'd found historically to evict them from your property, basically. The night that I'd finished, I had gathered with some friends. We were stood outside chatting, and I had a really dark negative energy come over the top of me, to the point where I was screaming blue murder. And the people around me heard and had very similar experience of their feeling, but they'd heard this thing rush up behind me, and I actually thought that a person was going to sort of jump on my back. There was more things to do with that, but I'm going to sound like a complete nutter if I give you any more information about that experience. But that scared the bejesus out of me, and I knew exactly what it was. And I went home and I scrubbed out the last part of that article and rewrote it. I never published that article. At some point, I will kind of expand and go somewhere with that article. But right now, I'm racking off a bit. I know I overstepped a mark.
Blimey. Okay, then. Next comment. Justin says, can the Fae help you with things?
Oh, yes. Oh yes, you can ask them. I mean, I don't know anybody who hasn't used the parking fairy. So you're driving along trying to find a space in a car park, and you ask out loud, you know, can the parking fairy help me find a spot? And bing, you know, you drive around the corner and there's a spot opening for you there. So I think sometimes we ask out without even realizing we're doing it, because we do it in a kind of whimsical way. Things like, you know, finding keys, you can ask for help for that. You can also ask for help with growing in your garden, you know, go out and as you do, Jane, you know, leave them offerings and they will come back and they'll help you out growing in the garden.
Okay. Von says, I personally have not ever experienced fairies, anything similar. I live within areas of woodlands. I would have expected to. And then she says, how can I attract them, please?
Oh, okay. There's definitely two questions there. So when attracting fairies, when working with fairies, you kind of have to be very specific about what you want from them and how you want to work with them, because they will take the piss. They will run amok if you don't give them some guidelines and some boundaries. So be very specific. So if it is you want them to come and help you in your garden, be very specific about that. How to attract them. So I think I was thinking about this today, and I think the best analogy that I can come up with is throughout the COVID, I have really upped my game with natural foraging for herbs and fruits and plants, etc. And one of the things that I'd never been very serious about, but kind of played around with before, was mushroom hunting. And this year I've really upped my game. I've been going out on a regular basis, identifying mushrooms, really getting to grips with the nature of mushrooms. Don't worry, this is going to go into the fairy realm. And I swear that I have never, ever in my life seen so many mushrooms or so many varieties because I'm looking. And I say that I have my mushroom eyes on. So if I go into the woods and I deliberately go into the woods to find mushrooms, I find the most spectacular mushrooms. If I go into the woods without my mushroom eyes on and I'm just walking the dog, I find no mushrooms. And it's the same with the fairy realm. If you want to find a fae and you want to have those experiences, you've got to open yourself up to it. And you've got to do that with all the good intention that you can. So you go into a woodland and you start appreciating that woodland from the microscopic right the way up to the giant trees. So you're looking in the foliage on the floor and you're appreciating things as the seasons change. And those experiences will come to you. And they don't necessarily come to you as in, hey, we're fairies and we're here. It could be a different sense that you get, or that you see animals that you've never seen before. It's all those beautiful experiences once you start opening yourself up to them. But yeah, definitely have an intention if you want to attract them and work with them. That's definitely a key thing, else you're going to open yourself up to a whole load of trouble.
See, that follows on nice. Sorry, Neil.
It's the word intent again, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
No, at the minute, my favourite word in the paranormal is your intent.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. So go on, Jane, what were you saying?
So talking about mushrooms and things, that takes me on to the next bit quite nicely, really, because just before sort of winter, really, when I was on one of my walks, there's a big grass verge up sort of round the corner from me, and the fairy ring sort of comes up with the mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And on this particular day, I saw this chap in the council mower just drive on, because it was up quite a bit and it was absolutely beautiful. And I was seeing it for a few days and it just felt so special. And then this bloke comes along on his council mower and just chops the whole thing down to nothing. And I was absolutely gutted, and I could feel the sadness around me. And it was, it's just one of those things that sort of takes your breath away, really. And I get it that he can't leave it there. But, if we wanted to attract that sort of thing, how would we get a, say, fairy circle in our garden? How, for people who don't know, how do the fairy circles work, and how could we get them?
In terms of fairy circles, as in mushrooms?
Yeah.
So I think the connection between fairies and mushrooms is all over the place historically. There's loads of different theories about why there's a connection, but we do make that association, especially with particularly with fly agaric, and that's because of their I think it's psychotropic hallucinogenic properties that they hold, and how they were ingested for shamanistic practices. So that's why we get that the fly agaric, the red and white mushroom association with fairies. There are fairy rings tend to be either fairy chanterelle mushrooms, or they tend to be large trooping. Oh God, I can't remember the specific name, but they're really large trooping funnel. I think they're called trooping funnels, which are huge mushrooms, and they make these incredibly massive rings. Stepping inside a ring, stepping inside any kind of ring. I mean, we know from magical practices that, you know, you do your magical work within a ring because it creates a space, a safe space, but it also creates a portal. So we know that circles create portals. So there's that association as well. There are lots of different connectives. In terms of getting that in your garden, getting a fairy ring, a mushroom ring in your garden, you could do it naturally, and you could actually, what I've been doing is I've been taking specimens of mushrooms from woodlands, and I've been liberating them in the garden since the start of the autumn, in hope that I will get some come up. Or you can recreate that with, you know, maybe get some stone mushrooms and make your own, and have, again, it's that intention element, you know, that intention of making this sacred ring specifically for fairies. And fairies particularly love to dance, and that's where they say that this circle is formed, because a fairy ring can also be where the mushrooms die. They leave this perfect circle where the roots, the mycelium underneath, haven't fruited, or are about to fruit, or have fruited and died back, but it kind of almost burns the grass. So you get these rings within the grass without any mushrooms in them, and they say that that's where the fairies have danced in circles.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. Okay. One says, we have many beautiful mushrooms and other growths in our woodlands, lots of wildlife. We do have what we call fairy rings, but just thought that was from make-believe.
I would say go and try it, but I don't want to take any liability for anybody going missing in the fairy realm, really. But I quite recently, with these giant fluted mushrooms that I came across, it was absolutely breathtaking. I'm not a particular fan of pine woodlands. I find them quite spooky and quite dead spaces. So I've never really wandered around them, but recently with the mushroom hunting, I've been going into pine woodlands to look for specific species. And I came across, and it was ginormous. I swear this fairy ring was as big as a house. It was massive. And I was having a particularly rough day with the whole C19 thing, and I stood inside this fairy ring, and I did the whole kind of labyrinth thing where I was like, Goblin King, come and take me away. And then I was like, shut up, Kate. You never know. You never know. I don't know whether I want to be whisked off to the Goblin Castle or not, but it didn't happen. But if people want to try it, then who am I to stop them?
Yeah. Goblin King was David Bowie, so
He was.
It's worth going.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then. Justin says, there is a beautiful brook, but it's part of a caravan park. They have reeds and plants where dragonfly would go, but their company have cut it all back.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully those things will grow back. You know, I think when you get fae that are attached to water, they tend to sort of do their job by trying to sort of re-energize places. And if it was cut back because it was getting too overgrown or whatever, the fae aren't that fussed about that kind of thing, as long as it's being managed respectfully and not being dumped into. So if somebody had come along and sort of dumped a load of stuff into the brook, then that would be a different matter. But if it is being managed, then I don't see that as too much of a problem. If you're worried about it, though, you can go down and maybe sit, you know, for 20 minutes, half an hour, and in your head just chat with them, just chat with the fae and say, look, I'm sorry that, you know, my fellow humankind have done this to this place, but we want you to be here, and it does go a long way.
And then Clifford said, no, it looks awful.
Oh, that's not good. That's not good.
So are there lots and lots of different kinds of fae?
As many as you can think of, honestly. Even within the species, there's subspecies, and there is different fae on different continents that are called by different names and look very different and act very different. You have this huge spectrum. Like I say, from the very light beings to the more to the darker, earthier types of beings. However you can think of in your mind of what these things are, they do exist. They are there. They tend to fall within the elements, and that's oftentimes why they're called elementals. They tend to fall within the four elements of earth, air, water and fire, and are connected to those energetically. But yeah, there is an absolute plethora, and depending on what part of the world, I mean, particularly Ireland, Scotland, and Wales have probably the most amount in terms of understanding of the different species within the Fae realm.
A question, Jane?
Yeah, do you think water makes a difference? We know water's a good conductor of energy. So where there are sort of lakes and streams and little brooks and things, do you think that sort of helps with the fairy communities? Do you think the communities are stronger around water?
I think certain communities, definitely within the Fae realm, are more attracted to water as an energetic means for them. But all different Fae are energized by areas that they're particularly attracted to. There is something called the fairy pathways, which are cited as going on along ley lines often. That are very high energy, where you'll get a good lot of traffic of fairies coming and going, and I think water, especially running water, possibly acts in that same kind of way. That it's as we know from the spirit world, it is it's like a highway, and can become sort of a through traffic for different energies and different entities, because it's constantly moving, it's generating energy. So yeah, I would say that that's as good a place as any to go and find some Fae.
Brilliant. Okay. Just his comment. They don't care about the area's wildlife. There is a man that has complained about the decline in butterflies, etc. I have enjoyed all your guests, but have to go to bed. Thanks for a great show.
Oh, no, Justin.
Thanks for watching, Justin. Von says, I do think man ruins a lot of nature. Good night, Justin. Chat soon. Yeah, that mankind, it does ruin a lot of areas, don't we?
Yeah, and like I said before, it's that lack of respect that goes with it. It's and it's the lack of use that we have for things. So we'll cut down and we'll cut down forests for putting train tracks through, but we don't actually go on then and use the logs or try and reinvigorate the environment again around those places. They just become almost dead spaces, and it's that, for me, it's that lack of respect, because we can't stop progress, we can't stop people building and making things. But we can have respect in what we do and how we do it.
Do you think if man carries on the way we get this going, do you think there'll be some sort of uprising of the Fae?
I think they're pretty safe in the knowledge that if we kind of blow this, we're blowing it for ourselves and nobody else, and they will be there and they will help rejuvenate things. So their level of care is sporadic and sometimes conditional with their relationship with us. I think in terms of nature, they see us as pretty stupid animals, really, that we are destroying the beauty of it and the things that we need out of this world. We see things as resources for us, and they're not ours. They're not our resources to take of what we want, and they know that. They know that if we run out of those resources, then it's bye-bye us, and they'll step back in and they'll help regenerate things.
Yeah, we are pretty stupid, aren't we? Face it.
Yeah.
Another comment from Von. I'm drawn to water. There's something mystical about water. Very drawn to water. I don't think it's just because I'm an Aquarian.
No, Aquarians are can be incredibly psychic and incredibly attached to the psychic world. So maybe, I don't know if that's something that you are exploring, but water definitely, in terms of divination, in terms of deep emotional sort of plunging into yourself and really kind of getting to grips with who you are on a spiritual level. It's that might be part of the connection as well. So yeah, I'd explore it some more, definitely.
Yeah, okay. And a comment from Ant. Neil, I think the way mankind is going, the whole of the paranormal realm will stand up and fight to protect the planet. Going to clap there. Any comment, Jane?
Yes, just moving on from looking after the woodlands and things like that. When there's massive fires, like in Australia, the bushfires, and like in the Amazon, how we've seen recently, where so much of the Amazon was burnt.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that while all that's going on, I mean, what happens to them? Do they all sort of move away, and then when it's all died down, do they then come back and help rebuild and rejuvenate? What happens to them in that time when things are sort of burning and the devastation? Because that is it is a natural thing to the point where it's fire, and it's whether it's man-made that sparks, the initial that sets it off initially. But what sort of happens when sort of mass destruction like that happens through fire?
I mean, there is. I read a couple of years ago, and I can't remember what book it was, but there was a theory, particularly when there's wholly natural disasters that occur, that actually the Fae can be behind it, and they're charged with actually helping that process sort of move through itself. And it's almost like a purging. So when you get mass forest fires that are needed to clear a forest, say like in Australia, I know a lot of their wildlife and their plants rely on forest fires to rejuvenate and regrow, almost like rising from more fertile soil through these fires that occur. That the Fae are actually instrumental in what happens. So they don't move out of the area. They actually become quite actively involved in what's occurring, and then actively involved again in rejuvenating and replenishing those areas. I mean, I really can't remember what the book was called. I'll find out, but the lady was talking in terms of there's almost a hierarchy when these things happen, things like tsunamis and volcanoes going off, where you have like a general in charge within the Fae realm, and then it dissipates orders down this hierarchy for different sort of squads of Fae to take action at different times for these things to go in a way that's most beneficial to the ultimate outcome. I don't know how I feel about that, but I just thought it was a really interesting concept, that the Fae play a part in this. It was a bit mind-boggling when I read it.
Yeah, it's always interesting to sort of hear other people's views and different sort of theories.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, let's put Von says, I think the apocalypse will happen in nature, Neil. I feel nature is turning the tide now. Do you agree with that, Kate?
I think nature will always find a way. I've got that hope. Definitely, I live in that hope that that nature as a whole knows what it's doing, and I think that humans think that they're cleverer than they actually are. And nature is way cleverer as a whole system of beings and energies. It totally outstrips us for knowing what it's doing.
Yeah. Okay. Let's put Von's comment up. One says we've recently had peat woodlands fire that lasted 3 months. It was devastating at the time, but 6 weeks later, the land has been totally replenished. It's beautiful, and new wildlife has rehomed themselves. That's interesting comment, isn't it?
Yeah, it does happen. It does happen.
It's fascinating, me. This is.
Are you a believer yet, Neil? Because I know last time Last time we spoke, you were a bit on the fence, weren't you?
I was on the fence last time, but yeah, I believe in. Well, we have creatures at the centre. I don't know what they are. We just classify them as creatures because we don't know what they are. So yeah, I believe, and I can always remember a quote from John Lennon. John Lennon believed in fairies, so if it's good enough for John Lennon, it's good enough for me, surely.
Yeah.
But it is fascinating listening to you talk, actually. So yeah, it's fascinating.
I think nature will always find a way to repair and heal. I mean, look at places like Chernobyl. You see the pictures of them now, and they're just covered in woodland and green, and you know, all the plants and trees and everything have completely overgrown all the buildings and all the things that were there. And I do believe that the Fae have a helping hand in that. You know, nature will always find a way and rebuild where it needs to.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think like these tsunamis or the volcanoes going off, there's a reason for it. It's, you know, mankind always thinks, like you said, Kate, mankind always thinks we're at the top, but we're not. We're not in charge, and mankind is pushing it as the limit. But eventually, nature will bite its backside.
Definitely, and I think we forget because we do think we're at the top of that chain. We do forget that the planet in itself is a living thing. It's, you know, we're not on this dead lump of rock. It's a living thing that we're on. You know, that can produce volcanoes and tsunamis, and it has this core of energy. You know, we're not just floating around on a lump of rock that hasn't got its own energy. I mean, we know through recent studies that all planets have a vibrational frequency that can actually be heard as different notes, as different frequency notes that we can hear. You know, so these planets, you know, they're not devoid of life of their own, and we forget that as well. You know, it's we've just lost that connection. We've just lost our connection to what's under our feet and before our eyes, and it's quite sad, a sad state of affair, really.
Yeah. Okay. Vaughn says exactly, Neil. I think that's about John Lennon, and Ant's on about John Lennon as well. Ant says, but didn't John Lennon have one or too many of those special mushrooms?
He was obviously looking for fairies with those special mushrooms.
Yeah, he was. But he still come out with some good music with those mushrooms. Oh, Ant says, or is it the case that potentially illicit drugs actually aid us in the world of the Fae?
I've had this conversation. I have had this conversation. From my personal perspective, I often say there are no shortcuts. So when people have asked me before about, you know, different shamanic practices that take place and drugs that are legal, you know, I mean, ayahuasca's one that's become quite popular within the sort of the more spiritual realms. I don't think there's any shortcuts, and I actually think that putting in the legwork yourself to do meditation, to take the time out within these environments is way more important and will give you a much more of a longevity of a relationship than any of these bypassing shortcuts that you could take through drugs of any kind. So personally, from my perspective, it's a no-no because I want to have the lifelong connection. I don't want to have this instant doorway opening. I want to be able to know how to open and close them, how to work with them when I'm compos mentis. However, I know that people do utilize these things for connection in that shamanic sense, where they'll converse with the Fae or converse with spirits and ancestors. I've got no problem with other people doing that, but for me personally, it's a no.
Yeah, okay. I can see Rob and Wayne are waiting in the green room. They can hear us. See, it's running like clockwork, look. I'm amazed. Vaughn says, mankind destroyed. We used to be educated about nature. I think the last few generations are losing the knowledge of what their earth is.
Definitely. I saw a really, really sorry thing on the internet not long ago where it was just some random guy, I think, who had got hold of a new Oxford Junior Dictionary, and there was a raft of words that had been taken out, including the bird wren, and different trees had been taken out of the dictionary and been replaced with words that were associated with the internet or with logos or with consumerism. And that just, for me, it was such a sorry thing to hear. If you speak to kids and ask them, what tree is that? And it's very obviously an oak, so it's not a particularly difficult one to identify. They don't even know where to begin to how to identify it, or what these, the things like medicinal properties, or what you can eat and what you can't eat. And actually, when you start talking to children about, you can go into the woods and there are things that you can eat and chew on the way, and try different things and taste different things, and it becomes enchanting to them. So we're actually taking away this real magical aspect from children, and it is going to be a generation devoid of that magic, which is it's quite a sorry thing, really.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, we've run out of time again. It's been fantastic talking, Kate. I hope once the COVID is all finished with, you'll be able to come down to the centre and do a talk for us.
Definitely, I'd love to.
That would be fantastic. I know Jane will be excited.
Yeah, it's been brilliant catching up with you again. It's been fantastic.
You too.
I always enjoy our chats.
Me too.
Of course, you are joining us next year. I can't remember when, but it's in my calendar.
Yeah.
So we're going to kick you off in the nicest way.
Well, have a happy new year, both of you.
Happy New Year to you.
And you. We'll talk
Happy
next
New
year.
Year.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Kate.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Kate's gone. Okay.
Cool. Fantastic.
We've got.
So, what do you think, Neil? Has it changed your thoughts on the Fae?
I do believe in them. I'd like to see them. But it's the same as spirit, isn't it? I'd like to see the spirit.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll bring Rob, Wayne, and Dale in now.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
Good evening, guys.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Dale.
Good evening, Rob. How are you?
Fine, you weren't invited.
Oh, was I not? I'll go then. Shall I?
Lovely to have you, mate. How are you? You're right.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm great. Thank you. How are you guys?
How are you, sir?
Hello, Rob. How you doing, mate?
Not so bad. You're all right.
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Did I see Phil and Sarah pop on for a bit?
I was expecting to see Phil and Sarah here, to be honest.
Yeah.
Are they coming on? Okay, we're still live. We're into our 5th hour.
Well done, guys.
Sorry,
I haven't been able to join sooner. Obviously, we've had our premiere tonight, so obviously that took priority. So I do apologise.
Yeah, of course.
Apologise for that.
I'll watch that. Okay, we're going to bring Santa and Rudolph on. Here's Santa and Rudolph.
Hey.
Hello.
Chris.
Hi, guys.
You're
Hello.
right.
How are you?
We're all good, thank you. I'm getting a bit tired now, actually, because this is the 5th hour. I come up with some stupid ideas, you know.
You love it.
Great ideas at the time of conception, but when it comes to it,
At the time, I thought, 5 hours a night for 6 nights, it's easy. But this is only night 1.
And you've got 5 more to go.
We've got 5 more to go, yeah.
That's great.
Ending on New Year's Eve at midnight. Well, we've just gone midnight. We're going to see the New Year all together.
Ooh.
Brilliant.
That's the plan.
Fantastic.
What would you normally be doing on New Year's Eve then?
At midnight?
Yeah.
I should be in bed.
What, normally?
Normally?
Yeah. I've never go out on New Year's Eve because it's just full of idiots. But at my age, come 10 o'clock, you've gone past your bedtime anyway. So okay then. This show, first of all, let's welcome Rob. The award winner.
Stop it.
If no one knows, I'm sure they'll do. Rob won the Unsung Hero Award this year with He Pop, didn't you?
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. Yeah, that was to you, Rob.
He went very quiet then, didn't he?
It's like the sound just went to the worst possible time. The sound's come back again, but the sound just went at the worst possible time.
Did it?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you won the Unsung Hero Award with the Higgy Pop this year.
Yeah, I did. But in my screen, it looks like celebrity squares at the moment. And the squares below with the Are You Haunted team, we couldn't have done half as much as what we've done if it wasn't for those guys underneath here right now.
Yeah,
So, there's another 4 unsung heroes at least underneath here.
Yeah, shut up.
Okay, then. Explain why you think that is then, Rob.
Veritas Paranormal kind of came to fruition. We, my wife and I, we were part of another group for a couple of years or so. Again, completely not-for-profit. We decided to go our own way because a lot of the investigations which we were doing were taking us away from Yorkshire, taking us away from Leeds. And we all know when you go ghost hunting on a night, it kind of kills the weekend, to be honest with you. Come Saturday night or Sunday morning when you crawl into bed, that's it. You're back at work on the Monday, keeping it local. At least you can get back in a reasonable time. So we went our own way. I said to Anne-Marie, my wife, we need a name. And we came up with Veritas, which is the truth. It's the God of truth, So we stuck with Veritas Paranormal. The group was born, if you want to put it that way, around about September time last year. Brand new group in the field, which is already, well, not already, but it is saturated with hundreds of other groups, which we're all aware of. And pretty much straight from day one, I was speaking to Phil a couple of times before. I asked him to do a little video for the old group who we used to be in. And I'm so privileged that Phil kept in touch. And pretty much one of our first events was a 30 East Drive. And they all popped along. Phil, Sarah, Dale, Wayne came along as well. Jane, obviously, as well, and they've literally supported us from day one. We wouldn't be half the group as what we are now if I couldn't have put on all these celebrity names on our flyers and plugged into our guests. Phil, stop putting your head down. I'm giving you a pat on the back, mate. A well-deserved pat on the back as well. There's not a chance in hell we would be where we are if it wasn't for those guys supporting us. Obviously, there's all our group members who put their hands in the pockets as well. But to give us some kudos, some credit, if you want to put it that way, Phil and Sarah especially, and like I say, Dale, Wayne and Jane, they've been phenomenal. They really have. And they are, in my eyes, as much a hero as what I've been nominated, so I salute you all.
There you go. Praise.
Yeah, it's not warranted. It's not needed, Rob, to be honest, because you guys just do a fantastic job as it is, and I'm sure you'll be just as popular without our ugly mushes towing the line in there.
Rob, do you know what, mate? You do all the hard work. We just turn up.
Yeah, and Anne-Marie as well. Don't forget, and the others. Yeah, we just turn up and mess about with your event.
I'm going to mention something else as well. Watch people kind of run out the door and leave. What have we got there? 9 people looking at the moment. I mean, both Anne-Marie and I, we kind of started our journey in the paranormal to an extent, watching the early credible years of Most Haunted, which we thoroughly enjoyed. And not for a minute watching Phil on Most Haunted, and Sarah obviously in the lives, not for a minute would I ever thought I'd be speaking to Phil. And also more recently as well, Richard Felix as well, who's a lovely chap. But I didn't, every time Phil messages me, I have to pinch myself. Now, But now they're our friends, and watching them on the telly when they do their episodes, which I need to point out that the new episode tonight, brilliant, loved it, great job. Just watching our friends on the telly is the weirdest experience. It really is. It's just, we can't take you seriously anymore. We need to fall out with you or something.
Well, thanks for that.
Because
That's why I said.
That says Tamri, yeah, that's Phil. Where's his bloody fig rolls?
That's why I said we just turn up and mess about with your events. We're hoping at some point when all this is over that, and I've not mentioned this to you yet, Rob, but I mean Sarah will tell you. Go on. No, we when all this is over and we can all get together, we want you and Anne-Marie to come down and guest investigate with us on an episode. So
no,
yeah, so that'll be cool.
How would you like that? I've got a good location actually. It'd be good.
Well, Anne-Marie said to me not so long ago, God, I can just imagine you and Phil on an investigation together. It'd be an absolute bloody nightmare. Probably, but I might have to edit out a hell of a lot of it, to be honest with you, you know.
It's Wayne you've got to watch for.
So again, you are.
It's Wayne you've got to look out for.
Don't listen to him, mate. Don't listen to him.
But yeah, that would be absolutely amazing. That really would. I'm blown away.
As long as you've got a steady back to lean against, then Dale will be fine because, yeah, he's well known for nodding off. I'm surprised he's up actually. It took me a couple of seconds to realise who it was.
I'm impressed.
Is it a bit late for him?
Yeah.
Well, it is.
Past his bedtime.
It is. Yeah, I'm absolutely shattered. I do need my bed. I stayed up especially for this, Neil. It's only because I knew Rob was on. I stayed up. You see, that's all it is.
No, to do with you, Neil.
Nothing to do with this.
How are Jane and Ben?
Who?
How's Jane and Ben?
Who?
I didn't hear you, that's why. Jane Cardigan's fine. She's in bed probably. And Ben's upstairs. I don't know what he's doing. Playing his games probably.
Yeah. He's watching his mates do a live stream. So
he's very games and stuff.
How did the new episode go tonight? And Phil?
Really well.
I've not seen it. I will catch up on it.
Yeah, we've my phone goes a little bit nuts after the episode's gone out, and it's got extra nuts tonight. So I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but yeah, it's a good. Everybody seems to have enjoyed it anyway, so it kind of blew our minds, didn't it? So,
yeah, because on the night itself, yeah, it's when we edited the footage, it's totally like, what the heck? You know what I mean? It's like, well, that's totally unexpected. So.
I'm going to have to take these off because
my head's itching as well.
Jingling. I'm like,
here we go.
So, is it okay if I ask these guys a couple of questions, Neil? Is that okay?
It's your hour. It's your hour.
So, what I was wondering, I like, you know, I mean, I know firsthand for Veritas, we've been completely snookered with COVID-19, to be honest with you. My day job is with emergency planning with the local authority, so keeping up to speed of where you can, where you can't go, the rules, the regulations, the what ifs, the what fors, and so on and so on. I can only imagine it's the same for you guys going to locations. I mean, obviously you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different households or 3 different households, and keeping together as a team, especially in areas which a lot of locations I found trying to book events are closed at the moment, or they're not taking any bookings.
Yeah.
How's it been for you guys?
We just haven't been able to do anything, really. No. I mean, we had that break in the summer, didn't we, when we came out of lockdown, and we literally did 3 on the trot, including the Tutbury episode. So, and obviously, as soon as we went back into lockdown again, then that was it. So that's hence the reason, Rob, if you've seen the episode tonight, you can see when we do the summary, we had to do it very similar to this. We had to do it via video call because we couldn't at that point get back together again to be able to do it in person. So yeah, it's a nightmare. You know, people keep saying, "Oh, when you're doing this, or when's your next episode?" And it's like, when can we do it now? We just don't know. We don't know when this is going to stop, do we? When we can
We have got one to edit though.
Yeah, we've got one more that we did
I
manage
was
to
going to
get
say, have we got
done.
any in the pipeline, any hidden under the bed that you kind of?
We're going to drag one out. Yeah.
So how are you all coping during this COVID business?
Go on, guys. You answer first.
Bored rigid, mate. Bored rigid. There's nothing to do apart from take the mickey out of Dale and everybody else.
Nothing changed at all.
Let's get a question from Jane. She's sitting there and all nice and quiet. You got a question for the guys, Jane?
I'm being good. I really would like to know how it felt when you received the Higgy Pop Award, that sort of reward for all your hard work. How did it feel?
Well, let's not forget the award winners for 2019, the Are You Haunted team, of course. They're also award winners.
Yeah.
Honestly, when I found out, the only thing I've ever won in my life was a raffle when I was about 15 years old, and there was a bottle of Permaine. I don't know if Permaine is still a thing. It's like sparkling blue nun. I don't know if you even get that these days.
When you were 15?
When I was about 15 or 16.
70 years ago. Can you believe it?
Bye.
See you later.
Now, I mean, I had a phone call from Steve Higgins to say that I'd won it. My first thought was kind of who's nominated, why? Because at the end of the day, all me and Anne-Marie are doing is doing a hobby. It's a passion that we love to do, investigating the paranormal. I couldn't do it every weekend. I couldn't do it for money because at the end of the day, it's not, then it wouldn't be a hobby. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I don't want to turn it into a business because it just wouldn't be enjoyable. Because then if two people can't come, then if it was a business, it's affecting what you put in your pocket and so on, and it just wouldn't be as enjoyable. It is disappointing when some people decide that they can't come along for whatever reason, which is completely understandable. And then we can't give what we'd like to give to the charity. But it's never been about putting any money into our own pocket. It is a hobby. That is all it is at the end of the day. And again, not just the fact that I pinch myself when Phil messages or Sarah messages or whatever. Both me and Anne-Marie, we've made some fantastic friends with these guys in the boxes below here, and friends for life, Dale, Wayne, Jane, Ben, Sarah, and Phil. We love the world of you. We really do. And if we live closer, we're probably knocking on your door and coming for beer or whatever, and what have you. But again, back to the award. I'm absolutely blown away. I'm so thankful. My main reason for being pleased as well was hopefully to get some more members into Veritas so that we could get our name out there to recognize us a little bit more so that we can give more to charity. The few events that we managed to do during lockdown, obviously it was just my wife and I. We went along to the locations, we streamed the event live, and obviously put it out to our members, and it was the members themselves that put their hands in the pockets, and we cleared just over £2,000 with just 3 events. It was absolutely amazing. But obviously the more members that we have, the more we can donate.
Yeah.
And if COVID does carry on, then we might look at maybe doing another couple of online events if we can, wherever. I don't know. But
I've got to say, Rob, your members who come on the events and give the money over to you guys for the charity, you've got some fantastic people on that who support you, and they're very, very generous. Because I know a couple of times where you've had to cancel, and it's like, who wants a refund, and people are like, oh, you keep the money, it's fine, don't matter. And that's fantastic.
Yeah. Little do you know that I messaged them privately and threatened them.
Oh, really? I did as well.
Yeah,
I did the same thing.
yeah. And then I only put on the public forum what I want people to know.
I threatened to send Wayne round.
Sorry?
We have our first question for you guys. This is from Ant. What is the best location you have investigated, and what happened to make it so? Let's start with you first, Rob.
Oh, put me on the spot, why don't you?
Yeah. Give you guys some time to think about this one.
Investigated. Right, okay. It's cheesy as, and I know a lot of people love or hate the place. Some people think that nothing happens there and it's dead in the water and whatever, but I've got to mention, oh, hang on a minute. No, I'm going to mention Tomberton Unitarian Church in West Yorkshire. I was going to mention 30 East Drive, but no, I mentioned Tomberton Unitarian Church. Basically, we booked it a few years or so ago. Really not expecting much activity. We'd seen it on the telly on a program which I forget now, which I mentioned a little while ago. Anyway, they went along. It was on the TV, and we booked it. This was just we were starting out, so to speak. Not a lot of people came. A few people cancelled, but the activity when we got there, we just couldn't explain. Because we give everything to charity, I've got no reason at all to tell full stories to try and provoke people into coming. It's nothing to do with financial gain, because as you all know, we give everything to charity anyway. But what happened in Brink on the first night there that we went there, we had family members go down into the cellar who were physically scratched. They weren't standing in any walls or anything. They came back up and showed us the scratches. My sister-in-law still has a photograph of the scratches in 3 bits on her arm there, you know. We heard bangs going off up in the bell tower. There was nobody up there. We moved a table, and there was a horrific smell that came up from the gate underneath, like the gateway underneath, like in the floor. It wasn't Dory. Dory's our beagle. Phil, Sarah, Dale, Wayne know Dory well, and they know that Dory can clear a room quite easily, and it wasn't the dog.
Yeah, she can.
Yeah, and it wasn't the dog on the night. We went on the Ouija board, and we ended up having to close that down because one of the members just fell physically sick. And then we went back another time about a year or so later. Shadows on the ceiling. We had a really good capture of something which we couldn't debunk, which is on our website, which is www.veritasparanormaluk.com. Just get that in. But yeah, what an amazing location. I don't know how other groups have got on there, but it was just one of those locations where we thought, you know what, this is going to be a really, really poor night with no activity. We couldn't have been further than the truth. We love it there. It scares the hell out of us, but it's a fantastic location.
Okay, what about you, Wayne? You're sitting nice and quiet there.
Yeah, I mean, you do that many, they all start to intertwine, and the names. For the recent ones, Penrith, what we did with the guys a few months back now, I think that one for me, I think were the best audio I'd ever heard. Me and Sarah near the bar, and the voice that came over the bar, it just blew me away. It was incredible. It was just like somebody was at the bar. And when you were only with like 5 people, you think 1,000%, and you know it's all locked down, you know there's nobody in there because you've done a walkabout. To hear something like that, you're just thinking, where's that come from? What is that? So it's them little catches for me. What really, really blows me away is when there's only a few people in there, you trust them 1,000%, all locked down, nothing could be probably causing that, and you hear it really so clear. It'd have to be that one for me.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, Wayne. Sorry, Dale.
The question is a difficult question to answer. There's so many places that we've been to and asked to that all have brought out different results, and different kind of results that make each venue so great. Like Wayne just said, Penryn was absolutely fantastic. As he said, the voice behind the bar was phenomenal. But then there's Thorn Workhouse, which I loved. That brought so many results back for us all as a group and for me personally. And then obviously there's your place, Neil, the research centre, which again, something happened there that I just can't explain. It didn't happen to me, but it involved me. Now, if you watch the episode, I hope you all have, you'll understand where I'm coming from. So many different locations, as I say, that have brought back so many different results. It's hard to put an answer to just one location, to be honest.
Oh, okay. Phil, Sarah. Can I just apologise for the noise interference? I don't know if you guys can hear it.
Yeah, I can hear that.
There is some interference. I don't know what's causing it.
It's probably the weather, and it's really bad, isn't it? The storm at the minute, so it could be that. It's very, very difficult question to answer because we've just literally been to like thousands of places. A few names that I'm just going to throw in there. I love the Galleries of Justice in Nottingham just because it's just such a different, it's just different locations within there. Like you've got a cart room and then you've got the cells and the caves. It's just, I love that just for the diversity of it. But I've got a big fascination for underground places. So I love like Mary King's Close. We did the coal mining museum at Wakefield, which was just for the pure sort of bizarreness of going into a coal mine to do an investigation. You know, that place, I loved it. So there's just so many to mention. I can't really give you a definite answer. Not one. There's too many.
Okay.
Crikey. I like the places that I do have enjoyed going to. Creganos Castle in Wales. Fantastic venue, that. I enjoyed the music hall that we did in Settle.
Oh, Victoria.
Settle Victoria Music Hall.
Yeah, that was nice.
That was interesting, especially up in those rafter bits and whatever. Yeah. What else? Edinburgh Vaults. That's an interesting one. There's just so many that we've done. I mean, we lived in a haunted house for 12 months, and that was quite bizarre. So yeah, we rented it out just because it was haunted, basically. And that was fun. So yeah, that's some of the venues. And I was lucky enough to do Dover Castle many years ago when we did a live show. That was surreal doing that, because you think nobody's ever going to be able to investigate Dover Castle, and yet there I was walking around Dover Castle. So that was good.
I can actually remember that live.
That was the first one I did. I think I was only doing but I've only been doing the show for about a month or so, and I was thrown into the live show.
I think the Ross Tiger was a good one as well.
Yeah,
which was
Ross
a
Tiger.
fishing trawler just to investigate on a boat or a ship as it is. That's quite unique as well. So that was a really good one.
So going forward then, Rob, do you have any major plans for after COVID?
Yeah, I did actually say, for whoever was listening, I don't know if there's anyone listening from Veritas, from our members wise, but I do have, well, I'm in talks at the moment with what would be a fantastic event. About 6 months or so ago, bear with me on this one, about 6 months or so ago, I had a new Twitter follower, some guy called Brad Parsk. Never heard of him. Clicked on Twitter, went onto his profile. Turns out that Brad is a former Royal Marine. He's been on adventures in the jungle, the Arctic, the Antarctic. He's done exploring and all sorts. And it turns out that he's interested in the paranormal as well. So he found me, found Veritas on Twitter, and he started following him. And he started following me. So I messaged him, thanked him for the follow. He is a member of the Zoological Society, member of the National Geographic Society as well. The guy's been all over the world. He sounds like he's a young Ranulph Fiennes. You know, he's You name it, he's done it, and massive respect to the guy as well. So he's keen to come along on an event. It's got me thinking. I won't mention the zoo, but you probably guess from what I'm about to say. There was a zoo during COVID in financial difficulties, as all zoos are. And I contacted them, contacted the fundraising manager, and I said to the fundraising manager, can we do an event at Oakfield Manor? It would be, to be honest, it would be the most unique paranormal investigation that I probably have ever done, to be hosting an event and doing ghost hunting with the sound of lions and tigers roaring out the window. You know, it would be fantastic. We were looking at getting like a little buffet to start the evening off with, maybe get Brad to do half an hour talk and obviously join in there as well. Oakfield Manor itself used to be an old war hospital, or was used as a war hospital, and it dates back to early 19th century, I think it does as well. But yeah, I'm in talks with Chester Zoo. Can't do anything. There we go. I said it. Can't do anything until COVID gets over, obviously. But that one I'm looking forward to. We've got a few rescheduled events from this year. One of them is at Chillingham Castle, which we're looking forward to. That's a full weekend up there. And also we've got coming up, hopefully at the end of May, we've got a weekend up in Argyll, investigating Inverary Castle, going through Glencoe, the Inverarnon Inn on the shores of Loch Lomond. So hopefully that one can go ahead as well. But that's one we're looking at, two which we're looking forward to, and we've got another few kind of on the back burner as well, ready to go whenever COVID finishes, whenever that will be.
Well, when do you see COVID being over and we can get to sort of normality?
Looking at my day job, realistically, I mean, at the moment they're going through phase 1 with vaccinations. Phase 2, they're hoping to start end of February time, which phase 2 would be roll out to everybody. Now, how long that's going to take, how long is it piece of string? You know, we're envisaging early summer. Things can get knocked right quite easily, though.
Yeah.
And we're already up to, what is it now? I think it's the 3rd mutation of the virus that are in the UK. Now, you know, there's nothing to say that the vaccinations won't be as effective against these other versions of COVID. But if there is another version of COVID that comes in that the vaccinations aren't effective against, then theoretically you're back at square one.
Yeah.
Which hopefully, and fingers crossed, that won't be the case. And if things go to plan, late spring, early summer, you might start to see some kind of normality, whatever normality will be.
But I'll ask all of you, what do you think normality is going to be? The old normality, or do you think it's going to be something totally different? Sarah's shaking her head.
No, I don't think it's going to be back to normal. Do you?
I don't.
Not for
at all.
No. You are just going to go back to normal after so many months and everything getting used to what they're doing, working from home. It's not just going to go back there. I think it's going to be a new normal out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's bring Jane in, because she's been a good girl. I think she's probably tired now.
No, it's been very interesting. It's just nice to just listen to everybody.
So what do you think about COVID? Do you think it's the new norm?
I don't think we'll necessarily go back to how it was before. I think, you know, when they bring in the restrictions and things, a lot of them do tend to stay. You know, look at all the restrictions are brought in after 9/11, and a lot of them were only supposed to be temporary, and they're all still in place. So, you know, I think it'll just change the way people work, and people will just have to work differently. But I do think, you know, now Brexit's sorted, and, you know, I think things will change a lot because of that. So I think the two hand in hand is going to make things quite new and quite different, you know, and I'm hoping it's going to be for all the right reasons.
Yeah.
I was just going to mention something. What we do with Veritas, because it is mine and Anne-Marie's hobby. We've always really kept it to small groups, and I think that may well be the way forward with all groups, to be honest with you. But we've always kept numbers around about the 15 mark, 15 to 20. Part of the reason being some of the locations that open the doors for us when they know it's for charity, the locations are fantastic. So with a small group, Anne-Marie and I can enjoy it as much as what everybody else that comes along and enjoys it as well, you know. And I think group sizes could well be the new normal, getting group sizes put back. I mean, there's some places we've been to with a group of 15, which is more than enough. And the location owners have said, well, there was another group in last week that had 40 in here. And I said, where the hell did they all go? You know, where do you put them? You know, I think group sizes will be different, at least. We'll certainly keep taking the hand sanitizer along, to be honest with you, and maybe even the group vigils that we do as well. Obviously, I don't know whether or not people would be comfortable doing them now with what everyone's been through, you know. So it's tweakable, it's workable, but yeah, I think getting back to as things were, whether it'll ever happen or whether it'll take a long, long time, who knows.
Let's put a couple of comments up from Vaughn. I said, no, I don't think it'll ever be back to normal as we knew it, but I think it will be a better normal. Let's hope so. Then she says, let's look forward to August time. We will know more where COVID stands after this strain and the vaccines. That's a long time for August, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's going to go on for another year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
With regards to the team size, have you all been to Dudley Castle? I know Phil has. Have you all been to Dudley Castle?
No, I've not.
I've heard a team took 70 people in there.
Wow.
Oh, blimey.
I don't know what team was. Well, even if I did, I wouldn't say it.
Yeah.
Could you imagine 70 guests?
Yeah, I've heard similar.
Way too many.
That is absolutely ridiculous, isn't it?
Crazy amount.
Crazy.
Yeah, when we did our events, we never took excessive amounts.
No.
It's just not worth the effort.
Yeah.
Well, we did a Halloween special there, didn't we, a couple of years ago? And I think we had about 20 guests. And I think that was enough, wasn't it? If we had that many.
Yeah, well, we were invited when we were doing the venues. We were invited by Dudley Castle to do their Halloween two-nighters. And I said before at the start, it's 20 guests maximum, but they wanted more because it's more income for the Dudley Castle, which I appreciate. They've got to make the money. I said, no, get more than 20. I'm not doing it. So, but it's crazy. And I says, oh my God, that's crazy. Yes, it was.
Neil, I was just going to ask you, how's things been for you there at Hinckley?
We're on lockdown. The centre can't open because we're in tier 3. So I've had to go out and get a job so I can pay the rent and everything. But we're coping.
How frustrating is it for you as like a location owner when people are ringing to book? Like, say, if I was to ring you to say, Neil, I'd like to come down early February. Can you put us in? Here's your deposit. There we go. I mean, who knows where we're going to be in February? And, you know, I mean, are you taking bookings? I take it not, you know, it's
No, we're not taking any bookings at all now because we've still not, the first lockdown, we've still not caught up with the backlog from there because the teams have been fantastic. They've not asked for the deposits back. They said, okay, it's not your fault. We'll rebook when we can. So we're still catching up from last spring. And of course, we're in lockdown again. So we've got to catch up with all these. So next year is going to be full without any new bookings. But we have to adapt, don't we?
Yeah, we really do.
You know, because we're allowed at the centre because we work here, so we can do live feeds from the centre. So that's we're giving our members something to watch. Of course, we're doing this show, so it is very frustrating. Okay, question from Anne. I think we have to adapt and make a lot of changes to become the new normal. There is nothing wrong with small teams. The activity won't change. If it's meant to happen, it will happen.
Yeah.
You'll probably experience more with small teams anyway.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons Are You Haunted get the activity you get, because there's not many of you.
No, there's not many of us, and whatever activity we get, we're kind of really grateful for. I mean, fair enough, it might not be massive amounts of activity like you see on some programs, which we won't name, but we're portraying it as it happens, and we're portraying it in a true light of the investigation. So
yeah,
and that's the way it happens. People will know that when they do investigations, and they've done them before, that there is a lot of waiting around, and when it does happen, it's not a massive not normally a massive event. It's just one or two small things.
And
but that's why we pick apart the footage.
Yeah, those of us who do investigate know that it's real, because that's what you're going to get. If you get something small on a night, you've had a good night to me.
Yeah.
Because you can go for dozens of investigations and get absolutely nothing.
I was just going to say that, Neil. I'd rather go to somewhere and get nothing, because then I know it was real. And anything we do get, if we go to somewhere else and you get just a couple of footsteps in the corridor kind of thing, you know it's real, and it makes it all the more special.
Definitely.
More exciting.
Yeah.
It's that old adage, isn't it? If you're watching something and it seems too good to be true, then more than likely it's
probably is.
It is too good to be true. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, look at the time you were at the centre. That was a long time ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah, it seems like it. Yeah.
After it's changed a lot since you've been. You know, the voice when it sounded like you, Dale. That was just incredible.
It was absolutely incredible. I can't explain it to this day as to what that was. I don't think any of us can.
No.
Phil and Sarah, who do the editing, obviously they listen to it intently over and over again. And when I first heard it, I thought it was me. I'd have said it proves not, proves otherwise. And to get something like that is absolutely phenomenal, but we know it's real. There's no doubt about that, and that's what is so exciting about the way we do it and what we do when we go on an investigation.
Yeah.
And that venue, by the way, Neil, is Ben's favourite.
Yeah, it is.
Really?
Yeah. He always says haunted antiques.
Ben had his experience before he even started filming, didn't he?
Yeah, with a donkey, the little donkey on the shelf, wasn't it?
That was crazy.
Okay, let's put Von's comment up. Von says, "You keep it real, Sarah and Phil."
Yeah, there's no point in not keeping it real. You know, I mean, it might not get as, at the end of the day, it might not get as a lucrative TV deal, but it's what we enjoy doing, and it's what we enjoy presenting to the people that watch it.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, we wanted to portray something as a real paranormal investigation, and it's quite frustrating, as you know, when you are an investigator and you do watch these shows that are on TV, you either switch it off or you sit there shouting at the TV. Yeah. So we wanted to put something together that shows what it's really like, and we've been very lucky. Like you've said yourself, it might be that you sit there all night and you get this tiny little noise, but that makes the whole evening. So
yeah. And we're lucky with the people that we've got working with us. I mean, the people that we work with in the team, we've known for a long time, and we know that implicitly we can trust them like 110% that nothing dodgy is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why we enjoy working with Rob and Anne-Marie and the team so much, because they're of the same thinking, they're of the same mind as we are.
Yeah.
I was just going to add, thanks, Phil. I was just going to add, that's where we come from, a Veritas as well. The fact that we fundraise on every single event. I mean, God, there's been some nights, it's like pulling teeth. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, but we still have a good laugh though when we've been. God, yeah. Everybody enjoys it.
Then again, we tried a back to basics, Are You Haunted style vigil on a couple of events, and there was one night guests loved it. Another night, nothing happened. Half an hour, I'm bored. Anyway,
Please, everyone.
the good thing is with the fundraising, even if there is no activity, I promise you now, every guest goes home with that good feeling, thinking, you know what, nothing's happened, but we've just given £300 to whoever it was, you know. And that's the good thing with the fundraising. You do get a buzz when you go home and you get the certificate of thanks and whatever, you know, and it is a nice feeling. It is.
Yeah, let's put Von's comment up. Von says, what you see is what you get. All these teams that continually get the so-called activity, yet no proof.
I think gradually, you know, and I have noticed it, people are getting fed up with the over-the-top investigations that are presented on TV shows. I think they're getting a bit long in the tooth with the same kind of over-the-top presentation, over-the-top experience that they go through, over-the-top reactions to everything. And I've certainly noticed that there seems to be a kind of a slow sway away from that kind of thing. Yeah, it's entertaining, but the people that are really into the paranormal side of things are kind of moving across and moving away from that. Slowly but surely, because I think they're just coming around to the fact that that's not the way it happens. It doesn't happen like that.
Yeah, that's very true.
Exactly right. Phil, you've just hit the nail on the head. There's so many, it's so much more open now for people who have never done a ghost hunt to be able to come along and do a ghost hunt, you know. And there's so many more people who have been to the Haunted Antiques Museum, they've been along with Veritas or, you know, Haunted Happenings or whoever else, you know, there's hundreds. And it's so much more open and easy for people to book to come along and actually experience a ghost hunt, and then experience the fact that potentially 6 out of 10 times nothing may happen, you know. We as Veritas, we don't force anything. We certainly don't stand like some presenters do and demand spirits to come through and come forward, otherwise we won't like you anymore, and so on and so on and so on, you know. At the end of the day, we're communicating with people who have passed away, who are not circus performers, you know, potentially people's relatives, you know. On events especially, you do get past relatives come through to speak to guests. So there's not a chance in hell that we would stand up and demand anything from any spirit. And if they don't want to come out and pass a message, then we go home with that nice feeling, thinking that we've given £300 for charity, you know, so it's win-win.
Yeah, okay. Put Michelle's comment. Michelle says, I get fed up watching TV ones. I'd rather do my own investigations as you've never seen anything. So, yeah, I think the TV shows are slowly losing their place in the paranormal, aren't they?
Yeah,
nowadays,
certainly the mainstream ones are.
Yeah, there's so many more people who do paranormal investigating, who know what it's about, know how rubbish TV ones are. Well, the main ones.
And you know another thing I was going to... Sorry, Neil. I know another thing I was going to add as well. So many... I'd say the majority of sightings of the paranormal haven't been captured on film, haven't been recorded. It's something that one person has actually seen, and that will stay with them for the rest of their lives. And that's where Are You Haunted are completely on their own level. They're in their complete own niche where they don't use equipment, because at the end of the day, like I say, so many people... I once saw a kingfisher bird when I was about 11 years old. I've never seen one before then. I've never seen one since. I didn't have my camera with me. I didn't record it. But you know what? That will stay with me for the rest of my life. It was a stunning little blue, gold, red bird, you know, beautiful. But can I prove it? No, I can't. But at the end of the day, a lot of people who have that paranormal experience, again, similarly, they can't record. They haven't got the proof. They didn't take a photograph, or they didn't record it, or whatever. And like I say, are you haunted completely in that groove, that level where it doesn't need the gadgets and the gizmos? I like the gadgets and the gizmos. Well, I'd say I do. We only really use them because the guests love them, and yeah, it does give us that added chance, I suppose, to try and pick something up. We use a portal box similarly to a spirit box, but with no white noise, which gives me a blaring headache after a while.
Yeah.
Portal box is fantastic. Phil, Wayne, I think you guys have seen that in action at East Drive.
Yeah.
And some of the things the portal box comes up with is, I just can't explain it. It's brilliant bit of kit. But the guests love it, we love it, and so on and so on. Can I throw a question to Phil, Sarah, Dale, and Wayne, if that's okay?
Yeah, of course.
Have you guys ever been tempted to use any kit? If you could take one piece of kit, what would it be, or not at all? I know you got your CCTV and what have you, but are you completely no kit? Whose idea was the no kit? And there we go.
The no kit is kind of a combination of Sarah but I think Sarah and myself, but I think the rest of the team are on the same wavelength. Every time we used to do a public event, I would stand up and talk about each piece of equipment, but I would also talk about the theory surrounding it, its potential use. But after the end of us have spoken about all the equipment, I would always say, please remember, none of this kit is scientifically proven to help detect ghosts. It's just there because we're using it because other people use it in supposed haunted locations and gets, interesting results with it. And by the end of each investigation, when we did events, by the end of each, we did 4 vigils on an event, for instance. By the time we'd gone to the end of the second vigil, people were putting equipment back. They weren't taking it out because they thought that it's better off doing it without the equipment. And that's the way we've gone ever since. But for me, the best piece of equipment that we've got, and we do use, we don't say gadgets. By gadgets, we mean the stupid gimmicky things like the EMF meter and stuff like that. But the best gadgets that we use are, Wayne's Zoom and Tascam recorders, for instance. Well, I've got a Tascam recorder, and Wayne's got the Zoom recorder. Get some brilliant results from that. Dale's got his camera, his stills camera that we use every so often for taking shots and trying to debunk photographs with and things like that. So, to me, the best bit of kit that we use is the audio recorders.
And I think answering that question as well is like when you've got a piece of equipment in your hand and you go into a room and you concentrate so highly on the equipment you've got in your hand, whether it be lights or anything there, you could actually miss something, what is actually in the room. So we can go into a room, 2 of us, we can be chatting about various things, nothing to do about the location. And that's when we tend to pick stuff up. It's like Phil says with the recorders and the stuff, they're in the background. They're recording all the time, even when we're on breaks and stuff like that. And that footage we can go back to. But if you brought something in with you and you're concentrating so highly on that device, what it may do, you may be missing noises and bits and pieces what's going off in the room.
So Phil, you don't like flashy cat balls then?
Cat balls. We used to have some on the events, at one point.
Do you know what? We've been there. We've got all the equipment, and
it's all upstairs.
I was a bit of a geek when it came to equipment. I'd always get, if there's a latest gadget coming out, I'd always want to get it. But it is a little bit like you say. You know what? If you, especially because we do it just the 6 of us. If we go and we've got all these sort of pieces of equipment left, right, and centre, you get a spirit box, and if something comes through and it says a name or a word or something, you recognise it and you think, wow, that's fantastic. But at the end of the day, that's not proven to actually work. There's no proof that is real. No. There's no proof that that's not being manipulated so that it might just kick out a word, like the Ovilus might just kick out a word. How do you know that that's not being fixed so that it does that? Whereas I trust my own eyes and my own ears more than I do a box that I've got in my hand. And that's just what we decided to do that little bit different because, I don't think there's any other shows out there that do no equipment.
And don't get us wrong. Don't think for 1 minute we are, kind of blasting people who use equipment.
No,
That's entirely up to them. This is just our preference.
Yeah.
It's fine if you want to go use
equipment. It makes our show different from others that are out there, and that's what you've got to do in this as well. If you want people to watch, you've got to be different to what else is out there, and that's another element that makes us different because we don't have the equipment. But I'm not saying don't use it, and I'm not saying that there's other shows out there that are wrong by doing that. It's just everybody does things differently.
Well, you do it your way, don't you? We and Jane have said this for years. Our way might not be everyone else's way, but it's the way that worked for us. And
absolutely,
exactly, and that's where you've got to respect that in the paranormal field.
Yeah. As Phil just said, I take my camera with me everywhere, and it's not all about using equipment to find things. What we like to do with Are You Haunted is debunk things as well. We're all somewhat skeptic, and what a lot of paranormal things are is people have got a photo of something. People have got a photo of a shadow or a figure or something like that. So what we try and do, we've done it before, you've seen it in episodes, I take my camera along and try and debunk that. So it's not always about proving something's there by using equipment. It's taking that away and proving something that's not there. It's on the flip side. And as Rob said, it's not always about getting the evidence on camera. As Phil said, we trust each other implicitly. It's about getting that evidence, and we know full well what we've seen is real, is true. And we can tell that to everybody else that views our show. And we can only hope that they believe what we say, because, as I say, we know it's real. There's no reason to.
And the thing is, I believe you don't have to prove it to other people. As long as you know it's real to you, for you.
Yeah.
That's what we say at the centre.
Yeah.
Things happen to me and Jane. We know it's real. I haven't got to prove it to anybody else, because we know it's real.
At Tutbury, our Halloween special, I saw something that the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I forgot to mention it in one of my best locations, stupidly. Tutbury, right up there. What I saw, unfortunately, wasn't captured on camera, by audio, or anything like that. I saw a figure walk right in front of me, from right to left, for a good 10 seconds. But it wasn't on camera. But I know what I saw, and it was real.
Dale, the expression on your face, you didn't need to record it. The expression on your face and the way that you were spoke volumes. We loved that special. We really did. It was fantastic. And thanks, guys. It really was well put together. It was really good. And we will never forget how you were, during, before, afterwards.
Yeah.
You can't make crap like that, to be honest with you. That was because we know you, that's not like as you are normally. So we knew something. Whoa, hang on a minute. What the hell happened there?
Yeah, my emotions don't normally run high at all, to be honest, on investigations. I'm quite straight-faced as such. But what did happen, it did get me really emotional. I was in tears. I was crying with what happened. And I watch it back, and I get emotional again just watching it because of what I experienced. I can't control that emotion because of what I experienced.
It's the same with Jane.
The reaction of what I got.
It's the same with Jane when we investigated Wigan House, and she saw that figure when I was in the attic with her.
Yeah.
And you cannot put on the expression and emotions that she went through at that time. It's just, she simply cannot do it. She was so shocked. She was moved to tears, not in a frightened way, but in a strange, weird, emotional way.
Yeah.
Weird.
Cool. We've only got a few minutes left now. These 5 hours have flown by. I must admit.
I bet they have.
Are you finished now? Are you going to bed after this?
I'm actually starving. I'm going to need to have something to eat. I've only had one biscuit. So I know me and Rob have spoke about next year, possibly you might do an event at the centre charity.
Oh, right, okay.
Rob's looking blank.
No,
Was
yeah.
Was it frozen? I thought, did I
We just don't know when.
Sorry?
But we just don't know when at the moment.
I don't know when, but we will sort it out. So you will be able to come to the centre to do a charity night here.
Brilliant.
I know Phil and Sarah are our first, Jane and my first guests on our new Haunted Connection show on January the 12th.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, cool.
And we're going to be talking about investigating back to basics. That's what you do.
Cool.
That's all we're going to be talking about. Because next year, instead of just talking to the guests about what they do, we're going to pick on a subject and invite guests on who work with that subject. We've got you talking about back basics investigating. We've got Kate Ray talking about Faye again. So that's what she talks about. Now, the last couple of comments. And says, in regard to Kit, I'm starting to experiment with bits, but ultimately the main thing I use is my own mind and personal experiences that aren't documented.
Yeah.
I believe we're all on our own paranormal journey, and if you experience something, that's your journey.
Yeah.
Fortunately, sometimes we do catch it on film or we do catch it on audio. That's just a bonus, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Can I just say before we go, if anybody's watching this and you've not been on a Veritas Paranormal Investigation and you get a chance when all this is done, go on one because you'll thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll go on the one at the Haunted Antiques. You might have to book a few dates.
Put my name down for Haunted Antiques, please. I want to be there.
That sounds good to me.
I come as well. We need to come back and see you now that you've got your downstairs bit as well.
Definitely.
You won't recognise the place because you came, I think, June.
It was very hot.
Boiling.
It was the hottest day of the year.
Very hot. It was hot because I was on holiday, so I didn't actually.
Yes, you were.
You won't recognise the place. It's changed so much, and it will always keep changing the antique centre. So you're always welcome to come down and see us, even if it's not filming.
Thank you very much, mate. We'd love to do that.
And have a good night or have a good day.
Because Wayne's never been.
No, we haven't.
No,
I need to go.
Yeah.
It's not a bad place, even to say so myself. So that's it. Only a couple of minutes. So we're going to say thank you to you guys for joining us. Well done, Rob, on your award.
Well done, Rob.
Really
well done, mate.
Well done.
I'm going to politely kick you all off, and we're going to finish the night. See you all
so we'll just say Happy New Year to you all. Hope you have a
Happy New Year, guys.
You too.
And to you.
Stay safe.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Wow.
Right, that's our first night done, Jane.
What a fantastic night. All our guests have been great, haven't they?
Oh, they're awesome, aren't they?
Doesn't seem like all them hours to me. It's gone by ever so quick. But all our guests have been really interesting and it's been great.
Yeah, it's been good. All right, Jane, so I'll see you.
So we will see you all tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Who are we starting with, Neil? Tomorrow.
I've not got that written. Hang on. Let me tell you. Oh, well, I didn't know you were going to ask me that question. Hang on, let me find the sheet, the list. Bear with me. Okay, then, tomorrow night.
Who we've got on tomorrow? Yeah.
Tomorrow night at 7 till 8, we got Wednesbury Paranormal and Bizarre Dimensions. 8 till 9, we have got Sam Pert, who's a psychic medium. I think he's going to do tarot readings or whatever he wants to do. 9 till 10, we got a bunch of weirdos called Gap Paranormal, which is Amy's team. 10 to 11, we got SM Paranormal, which is Michelle, who sent in lots of evidence from the centre to us. So, and nobody between 11 to 12, so we can have an early night tomorrow.
We might have an early night then. Yeah, so join us all tomorrow, folks. It's going to be it's all about introducing and meeting new friends of all the smaller teams.
Yeah, so thanks for watching. It's 5 hours.
See you tomorrow. So bye for now.
5 nights to go. 4 nights to go.
4
See
nights
you
to
all.
go.